Village Board's work session for Wednesday, November 6th. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Jim, you'll take keep
Yeah.
track of opening and all that stuff. All right. So I had to move the meeting. I was going to move it to Tuesday night. I had a conflict on Monday, recognizing that Tuesday was the election. It made sense to move it to Wednesday. I don't know what the final count from folks that voted here. In the village, we have 3,000 residents, 2,100 registered voters by the Orange County rolls. I don't know.
1,100.
Was it 1,100? That's
Right
a
around
pretty
1,100.
good turnout.
Good turnout.
For 1,100 out of 2,100. You wish it was closer to 2,100, but still, that's 50% or close to 50, a little over 50%, I guess. So anyhow, we have our same assemblyman, we have our same state senator, and our same congressman. So I will be reaching out to all of them in the next couple of weeks. We have a lot of things grant-wise to be working with them on, and I will keep the board in the loop in regards to where we are on those things. Okay, moving on for tonight. We do have an attorney-client session. We didn't finish everything that we needed to do at the 6 o'clock meeting. So we are going to, once this meeting is finished, we are going to go back into attorney-client to seek advice of counsel. So we'll have to kick everybody out except for our esteemed attorney. Okay, first matter of business is going to be department reports. Our treasurer prepared the one. Each board member should have it in front of you for October. Take a look at that. I'm not going to read them. I'll do that on the 18th, because keep in mind, next Monday, the 11th, is Veterans Day, and the village observes that federal holiday, and we will have our board meeting, our business meeting, on the 18th. So take a look at this. If you have any advisements on how we can make this, Megan is now preparing these, working with our deputy village treasurer, Paula Howard. If you have any advisements on how it could be more readable or more this or more that, I mean, it works for my purposes. Megan is also working on preparations with our department heads for their budgets, which will be aggregated into the village's budget as we move heavily into budget season. Any questions in regarding anything on the village treasurer's report from the trustees?
Yeah, just during the business meetings when you read them out from the dais,
Yep.
There's sometimes, I don't know what the update cycle is or the printout cycle. Sometimes they differ. So occasionally
Yep.
your trustees on the board will look at it and go, did you say that?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that happens on the day or when, but
Yeah, and we don't have the number
Just
for the warrant until we get closer to the business meeting. That's why it's usually blank on here. It's like Dave's garbage pickup tonnage.
Yep.
We don't have. Okay. Next item is the building department's monthly report. Senor Carmona, anything to brief the board on in regards to your report for September?
Part of the report is so good.
Well, it should be for October. It just,
yes,
yes, it should be for October. Let's just correct that before the business meeting.
is this the October numbers?
These are the October numbers.
Permits are still coming in, they're moving well. We look like we want to continue visit through the winter season. That's the way, from what it looks right now. Check your email. You might have received an email today for your
Got it.
mail in reference
Oh,
to the 70 lot subdivision
Oh,
at
yeah,
261 Shore Road.
Did you say 70 or 17? Please,
17.
please, thank you.
I sent it
Tiny
now
houses.
for your information purpose only. As you can see, it's very lengthy. Took me a week to put that together, so it's a lot of information because it is a major subdivision and there's so much involved at that particular site that we must review. So I figured that I put it together that way to give everybody heads up on what we need to be looking for, what needs to be approved, what needs to be reviewed, and to read it, study it, because it will be coming to your board.
Okay. Manny, I got a question for you. Somebody came in today and I was listening to the conversation between the gentleman and our village clerk, who also serves as our village notary public. When did and why do COs now require a notary to sign off on them?
A CO?
Yeah.
Certificate of occupancy do not require notary.
Yeah.
So a gentleman was here today from a local contractor getting a CO signed off
Oh,
on.
no, that was an affidavit of contraction for a CO. There is an affidavit that he has to sign and to confirm to us that all the work was done according to code and in good workmanship manner.
So, okay, so now I'm confused. The town doesn't require it. Newburgh doesn't require it. New Windsor doesn't require it. Why do we require it?
Because I got my own program. I don't use their program.
Okay, so when you say your own program though, is this something that I was trying to explain to the gentleman and I said, I'll talk to the code enforcement officer about it. Is this something that's required by New York State that other municipalities aren't doing? Or is this something that you just instituted?
It's part of my program. New York State doesn't dictate everything that's required within your program, other than the codes. You know, how you enforce the program is up to you, and that's what we did, the 1203 report with Joe, which was filed with the state. Remember that 1203 report that we had to submit before December date that we missed way back a couple of years ago when I first started? Well, anyway, you did it, and it is filed with the state. Within that 1203 report, it says what is our code enforcement program, what are our procedures, what are how do we conduct business, and that includes your building permit requirements, your CO or certificate of compliance, which the state say you must do, but now how you get to it is up to the municipality. So the
So,
code enforcement program.
so Manny, just a question with that. So what's the end state? What's the purpose of the affidavit?
The affidavit-
The difference between not having one and having one.
Not all municipalities will ask for that. Very
Right.
few of them do. I came up with that for the municipalities that I work in because it protects us as a village, as a department. We,
How does it protect, but how more,
Well,
how does it protect us more?
Because
That's my
because
question.
let me just say this,
Yeah.
the only thing that a notary does is certify the signature of the person who's the applicant, but it doesn't certify that all the things that you need to do to lead up to getting that CO she's not certifying that.
no, just not, just certifying the
No, it's the
signature.
the affidavit says
The
you've done it.
Right.
They're just certifying the signature on the affidavit.
The contract.
So this is a concern about the signature, not whether or not it's not affirming that that work was done as according to what the contractor says.
Well,
was
No,
done.
it
it
is.
binds the contractor as being the person who submitted this affidavit,
Right.
saying, so
Yeah.
that you can pin it on a person if they didn't do it. There's an individual and it's clear that it's them.
Kind of what makes it sworn. You know, it's not like a police officer signing under penalty of perjury. It's either if you can do that under the law, you can do that. Otherwise, it's an affidavit.
Has there ever been an issue where this came up, that there wasn't a sworn affidavit and someone tried to give someone else?
Again, it's not required, but I think I've been to court many times on many projects that end up in court. And this is the type of documentation that protects me as a building inspector and protects the buildings from a lawsuit. I do the inspections, but once I leave the site, I have no clue what the contractor may do or not do.
So basically what you're saying is that way some unscrupulous contractor couldn't say, I never signed that, or you added
Right.
that on there after the fact. That's basically what
For
you're,
example, if I go do a framing inspection, I check that everything is 100%. I write my report of inspection, pass, go on. When I leave the site, the contractor may decide to do something crazy in there and the building collapsed tomorrow. They're gonna say, Manny Carmona was there, he inspected the wall, why did it collapse? Well, when I was there, it was fine.
right.
When I left, I got no clue what happened. So now the contractor it's certifying to me that yes, you left, but everything's still according to code and I did it as I'm supposed to.
Understood. All right, so
Okay.
so for the month of October, we had 12 COs. What would you say across a year? Because I know that in the winter it's different. What would you say across a year? Is it 100 COs that we issue? Is it 80? Is it 120? What would you say that average number is?
45 to 50 at the most,
Total.
total.
So this is obviously just during a peak season.
this is-
45 or 50. Okay, so every one of those is going to require, we're going to require the contractor to have it notarized.
Every building permit that is issued before it's closed must have an affidavit for all the work, not just for CO, for certificate of compliance
All right.
as well.
I'm just trying to make it easy for people that this is new for and that, work in the area and they go, I don't do it here, I don't do it here, I don't do it here. I only do it in the village of Cornwall and Hudson. And keeping in mind the fact that we only have one notary right now, the village clerk. I'm trying to get a second notary because, once Gene left, it was always Gene and Doris that were the two notaries. Gene left, we don't have a second notary. If Doris is out, if Doris is on vacation, if Doris goes to lunch and people travel here, it's just, I don't have somebody to backfill
They
that.
do know ahead of time. It is in the building permit application. It's not something that they get at the last minute. They
Understood.
know ahead of time. And believe me,
Okay.
don't compare our program to other municipalities. You got the best program.
All right. You don't have to sell me. I already kicked the tires.
Manny, you can require the affidavit, but the notarization, your concern is that the legal risk that the mayor identified before, which is that if it came to some kind of action or a case or whatever, the person could say, yeah, I didn't sign that affidavit.
That is correct. That is correct. And we do the same thing with building permit application as well, because it's a lot of information there that is sensitive, important. And once I can put it in the file with you for 20 years, but the one day that you need it and it's not, then, it's a question to answer.
Okay. Up on top of the mountain, 69 Deer Hill Road, status of the situation up there in regards to the permits. Does the owner of the residence up there, has he submitted for any permits on the
He
property?
got the application, it hasn't come back to me yet. I know there's some issue there with some complaints. I've been going up there
I
every
know.
time. I've been here since that complaint came in.
Yep.
And as of right now, it has been quiet.
Okay, so last night at 5 o'clock in the evening, there was heavy equipment being operated on the site. And some of the residents that complained, advised that it sounded like there was work being done, like construction work.
There should not be any, I haven't approved any yet, but I will go back and take a look.
Thank you, sir. All right, and no more issues with the barking dogs or anything like that? I mean, it's,
Like I said, I've been going late at night, early. When I come in, I come that way and I come down the mountain that way. I haven't heard any dog barking yet.
okay. All right, thank you. Any
Not
other,
excessive. One day I heard them, but they were not excessive
okay,
like they were before.
any other questions for the building inspector? Okay,
Any neighbors barking?
Anyone?
Neighbors barking, man?
Oh,
all right, fire department. Commissioner, sir, or is chief? Who wants to handle it? You're gonna handle it? Okay. Anything that jumps out that the board should be aware of, or anything you want to highlight?
Like the culinary mishap?
like that one?
Yeah.
Culinary mishaps.
I'd like to.
Well, at least there was blessedly only one.
Yes. Was anyone injured in the culinary mishap?
No.
That was in the
Chicken.
firehouse or?
No.
Oh, I thought it was burned
Chicken.
pizza. Burned pizza or something.
All right, what you got? Anything to add on there, Rick? Or anything to highlight?
Boats out of the water, we got some rescue rope equipment, we're
Okay,
learning, getting familiarized with. 2 members with training, and new alert system, which we like a lot, and the Knox box key secure system is installed right into program it.
Outstanding.
So it'll tell who took the key off the rig and where they did and what they used it on.
Very good.
excellent.
That's important.
Any questions for the fire commission chair?
I have a question.
Yes.
So my office is working with fire chief actually mainly on the valuation for the fire truck. And I know it's very preliminary now. I just mentioned it at one of the last meetings because it is a piece of village property. We do want to try to keep that process moving forward. I know recently there's been some delays in it. So I want to let the board know we are working on it. And at some point we may have to decide whether or not the village board needs to retain an appraiser or someone to do our own personal inspection. And we're continuing to work with the claims adjuster on it. And an attorney from my office is going to reach out to you, Mike.
He did. He called me yesterday. I didn't have.
This
time
is
to
on
call
the
him back.
damage
The
truck.
damage
Yeah.
truck that's at the body.
Yeah, and the reason
body shop.
I mentioned it is,
Quality set the price for repair, right?
No,
Oh, I thought they did.
they don't set the price. The adjuster did.
Ah,
yeah, and Yeah, I don't pretend to know the details. Another attorney in my office is working on it. I just mention it because it is a piece of village equipment. You should know what's going on. We're working on it. And my concern is I speak with Mike or I'll speak with the fire chief. So I know we're working on it, but I don't know if the board knows we're working on it. So I just want to make sure you know it's in process. And again, I think, Mike, you were going to take a look and see if there was maybe an appraiser for our
Yeah,
side.
I've reached out to two people, another insurance company that handles our LoSAP, as well as a manufacturer. And they're like, yeah, it's rather specialized,
Sure.
activity. So
Right.
they couldn't help me. So we're still working on it.
All right. So we're working on it.
Joe, for the record, we'll help you any way we can, but it's also not us, it's not our equipment, it's the villages, so we're gonna kind of put us in a weird place, like to try to negotiate with an insurance company. Right? That's why we have
Well,
you.
I mean, I'm actually raising that, just as you say, right? It is a
Mhm.
village piece of equipment.
Right,
You guys, even though you're the volunteer members, you actually know more about the equipment.
right, and that's
than
what
the
we can
board does.
assist with it, but we
Yeah.
can't,
Well, we have,
the
we
clerk
have
was
some,
pushing it to us, like, what, do something with this, and we're like,
well, I want to
don't
make
do
sure
it.
there's not too many hands, pointing in different directions, right? That's all. We all know the issue. Yes,
Okay.
we need to get the information. You guys know about the equipment. So
Right, and
you
that's where
help
we can
us,
help
you
you.
help us and we'll speak with the
To
adjuster.
help us.
Yeah, right.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, anything else on fire? Nope.
Not right now, but I saw something on fire. Thank you, fire company, for coming out to respond to there was a little kerfuffle at a property where I would happen to be sitting and I saw it after the fact, but they responded and all were very professional. It was, thank you.
Worked the way it was intended to work.
Exactly.
All right,
Thank you,
excellent.
gentlemen and
Um,
ladies of the fire company.
Chief Dixon, anything on your October report you want to highlight for the benefit of the board?
Just that we participated in, the annual First Responders Day over at the Lee Road School. It was a nice turnout. I had 3 of my officers go out there with 2 cars, and we had some handouts for the kids. Had a pretty big turnout, adjoining agencies from around this area also, whether they Woodbury, the sheriff, state police, fire department. So, it was a nice turnout.
Excellent. A lot of people. Any questions for the chief on the report? All right, moving along.
Actually, just one, the Bayview Avenue, I'm just looking, traffic enforcement post 35. That seems like a high number for the month, which is in accordance with what we asked, right? As
Correct.
218 is reopened.
Doing extensive enforcement on Bayview Avenue.
Yeah.
That's why the number there was quite exorbitant.
They were doing it on the other side too for a while, meaning
Highlands.
Highlands, yeah. 'Cause I take that road all the time. What I'm saying is I've seen a decent amount of times, I've seen their police officers there.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, DPW, zeros across the board. David, anything to point out?
Well, the report was actually requested on the 2nd, so it's hard to
Yes.
have the numbers ready, but, well, we finished Christmas in October. Cleanup was done October. We took care of the paving, milling and paving of all those areas that are listed. And also attended NICOM Public Works Training School in Saratoga Springs, and Deputy Mayor Kane was there as well, and I believe he got some good information there. I think
It was
he,
excellent. It was very good. Learned a lot about some water stuff too, Mike, so.
You'll have to come to New York Rural Water next May.
I was not
That
able
was
to go,
very
so
informative.
I offered it up to the deputy mayor for an opportunity, because mayors do sometimes travel to this conference, and from what I understand, is an eye-opening experience about what happens on in these disciplines that we're unfamiliar with, except for the surface.
I think the deputy mayor was impressed by the amount of service time when we
Oh, yeah.
when we had our we have an annual awards luncheon.
Well, it seemed like every DPW chief or deputy chief I met had 30 years in. The amount of experience in that room was unreal,
Yeah.
unmatched.
Hmm.
So it was, they could answer any question.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
A lot of good networking throughout the state, and NICOM had their general counsel there, which was we were able to
Yes.
speak with, and it's a good school to attend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Boat dock is out. It's already stacked up. We're still leaving in one of those trailer spaces. Is that the
Yeah,
plan?
and I reduced the amount of servicing to the restrooms. We upped it to 3 times a week
Yep,
during the peak
heavy
season. I've lowered it to twice a week when the weather gets worse.
Yep.
Which I hope isn't until like March,
Right.
but we'll lower it to once a week, but
Okay.
we're gonna keep it twice a week with the weather as it is.
Crosswalks and stop bars are painted on the places that we paved, like River and Idlewild. I saw that.
So in Washington Street,
And Washington Street. All right.
or not Washington Street, excuse me, Lafayette.
Oh,
Lafayette comes out.
Got it. All right. Any other questions for the DPW super? All right. Water department. Michael, anything to highlight?
We've done a lot of excavation the last month. You'll notice we replaced 3 fire hydrants. And just so you're understand, at least one of them was hit by a vehicle, a drunk driver, a few months ago. And it's been our practice over the last few years that we do go after their insurance to have them pay for that. So it's like almost $10,000.
Is that just for drunk driving incident, or do we go after any MVA that
Any
involves
MVAs.
a hydrant?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then,
Does that typically break the hydrant off the pipe when it gets hit by a car? Obviously, speed. having
yeah,
something to do
they're
with it.
designed to break away
Yeah,
at the,
they're breakaways, so you don't
at the,
kill.
the ground level, so it's not like Hollywood where the water goes flying over there.
All right, that's good to know.
Yeah, so if it's an older hydrant, we take the opportunity to replace that with a newer one,
Excellent.
you know, at their expense. Let's see, what else do we have here? We're looking into, and I probably will at the business meeting, request approval to purchase some GIS equipment so we can start mapping our water assets.
That stands for global what?
Information system.
Okay.
I remember GPS. That was a lot easier. Now it's GIS. I met with New Windsor IT about that today. They're going to work with us on setting up a mapping system so we can map all the water lines and stuff and whatnot. So
Perfect.
and then we're working on getting some large meter testing done. Joe, I'm probably going to put together an RFP. I'll need your office to take a look at so we can get that sent out. And then I've gotten 2 proposals on water rate analysis.
Which will segue nicely once we move into other business and discuss water rates is one of the things that we are looking to do as we sort through water rates.
Yep, that's it.
So that's a company that basically comes in
Where's my
and does an
boil water?
analysis.
Weeks Avenue, that's not on here, doesn't appear on the sheet.
When did that occur?
I don't know.
Yesterday.
Yesterday in November.
All right.
Oh, he was ready for that one, Dave. He was ready. Yeah, we tested him. You were testing him.
It'll be on there in December.
Well, of course, it's internal in-house disputes over when we can drink it.
Keep your mouth shut when you're showering,
How are we
Dave.
doing on the PFAS side? Well, the reason I bring it up, because one of the presentations I went to, they were hammering home each municipality. They were warning every municipality that you better have at least $15,000 to $20,000 just to start up your program.
Yeah,
And it's becoming more strict.
So we just did our annual testing of our wells, and you know, it's public information. There is contamination in our wells. We don't meet the maximum contaminant level. It is
They keep
expected.
lowering it though,
The
right?
minimum,
Exactly.
minimum, right?
No, the maximum.
What is it, 3 per trillion?
Oh,
The
maximum
particulate.
that you can.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So it is expected that they're going to lower that. I think they may. I gotta look at whether they actually have.
Yes,
it or not.
they're supposed to.
Yeah, and when that happens, Jason and I, we've spoken. We're gonna have to put treatment at the wells, probably a couple $1 million, and then also, believe it or not, Black Rock Forest has it in that water too, and that's gonna be a couple $1 million.
Yeah, they were saying it as part of it, you have to send it out to be tested. The problem is that there's There's
You
no
can't-
one,
You
Not
can't
that
just,
fine.
they can't,
Correct.
yeah, they can't detect
Correct.
it.
Not that fine.
Because the way they
Correct.
kind of, if I remember correctly, they said it's like 6 Olympic-sized swimming pools and
It's-
dropping one
it's,
eyedrop. of
yeah, it's
water
one,
into it.
it's 1 grain of sand in an Olympic sized
That's
swimming
it, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
1 part per trillion. And the lowest they can they want you to have 0.
Right.
And the lowest that they can analyze down to, I think, is like 1.8 parts per trillion. So we're asking, the water systems to do something that they can't even measure,
Right.
And as the technology becomes more sophisticated, when we used to parts per billion, parts per
Yeah.
million, now it's parts per
Parts per
trillion.
million.
What's going to be the next level?
I know.
Quadrillion.
Having water that
Quadrillion.
has absolutely no substances in it is
Impossible.
not realistic.
Not when you have a reservoir that's subject to rain and
Yeah.
ground
Runoff.
seepage and
Yeah.
wildlife.
Speaking of that, I'm glad you reminded me. New York City issued a drought watch for their system, which
Yeah.
does affect us. We're required to adhere to any restrictions that they have through our user agreement. However, we're not currently using that system, so it's kind of a gray area. Our system is in good shape right now, but like speaking to New York City, upstate, where they've been having these wildland fires, once those get put out and once the rain does come, now all that burnt material is going to wash down into the reservoirs, and you're going to have to be dealing with those substances.
Yeah.
So,
Are they,
They have gotten some rain though when we got none. So
yeah.
that's another part of it.
is there PFAS in the Catskill, in the Ashokan Reservoir, and those
No,
reservoirs
I
up
don't
there?
believe there isn't.
No.
No.
And I take it they don't use the foam that, on the wildland fires, they're using water and they're
Well,
using,
that foam
firefighting
is no
gel and
longer
stuff.
being produced.
Yeah, okay.
They have different.
so that's one minor less thing to worry about going in.
Okay, any other questions for Michael? All right, moving on to New Windsor EMS. You can see it on there. Again, jump down to operational, 100% of calls covered.
How's the
Response time,
negotiations going?
good. I mean, it's included in the budget that we pay into the town. So, they agreed, we agreed to a 1/3, 2/3 split with New Windsor, since New Windsor's population is twice the size of the greater Cornwall area. So I thought it was a reasonable deal. And that'll go into effect on July 1. So they just had to budget the additional amount of monies, from July to the end of their year, which is December 31st.
Was that's taken into effect that their revenue is decreasing?
Their revenue has been severely decreased, Dave.
It's in
Yeah.
Newburgh, yeah.
So really, it's, they didn't have a lot of flexibility in there. Now, they've obviously undergone some belt tightening as well. They, I think through attrition, they had a couple of paramedics leave. I don't know all the personnel movement that happened. A couple of people left to go to other places. And instead of replacing them, they're going to just make it work. So one of the things that not necessarily hurts us, because sometimes they do station paramedics at the Clinton Street location, even though we're not contracted for them to have one there. But response time into New Windsor is shorter sometimes from the Cornwall station, depending upon what part of New Windsor it is.
Yeah.
So one of the things, go ahead.
Sorry, their revenue decreased because Newburgh signed its contract and has its
That
own
was one.
transport.
Plus, Bill, I
and-
think they had like a patient that they were responsible for the primary transport for like dialysis,
For
which
specific
is a
person.
big
which is a
money, yeah.
large
Yeah.
chunk of money. Yep. That was just a couple of examples, but that was a big hit, losing the Newburgh piece. One of the things, and I voted early voting at the New Windsor Community Center, which is behind the ambulance corps over New Windsor. I don't know if anybody else did, but on the first day of early voting, which was on a Saturday, the line was stretched all the way out to the main drag. I mean, it was insane how many people were in line. I went back a couple of times and the line was long. They did a great job of snaking the lines around using cones and everything, but the chief is concerned about that many people when you have those open ambulance bays there, and looking at potential different location or some different plan for early voting next time.
Well, how about having more than one?
Well, we don't make those determinations. The county does.
No,
but,
but
yeah,
that's the answer.
yeah. Yeah, there were long lines. There were people waited in line and they wanted to early vote. People waited in line, I heard 3+ hours on the opening days. Okay, that is that. All right. Well, we're gonna move right into water rates. So, I've had a number of meetings with, the town supervisor as well as the assistant superintendent for business matters, Harvey Sutland. Is it business matters?
Yes.
With
We got a
him,
month, less than a month ago.
I had meetings with the prior Board of Education president, Mr. John Edlin. I've had meetings with the current Board of Education president, Jim Cragen, to discuss the issue regarding exemption of the property taxes and the school taxes that we pay on properties that we have water facilities that are inside the town. And since the town charges us property taxes on it, the school district charges the school taxes on it, and it's in the neighborhood of close to $200,000 per year. A simple deal would be for the town to exempt the properties. There's an argument then that the school taxes would go away, or for them just to, there's other options. I guess we talked about selling the town the property for $1, but then you have the issues of, it's our responsibility to care and maintain the properties. The infrastructure is ours. They wouldn't have. It's just a whole thing. So I had a meeting recently with the town supervisor, the deputy mayor, the water superintendent. Then I had a second meeting with the attorney for the village, the deputy mayor, and the water superintendent to talk about different things to do. I had a letter drafted up where we were going to make the case and argue that that we would not be subjected to litigation from another community, a contiguous community that wanted to challenge us on it, saying, well, you're not giving us the same deal, and you should, because that litigation had been won by the town of Woodbury with this very capable attorney as the lead counsel. But it just was falling on deaf ears. And I feel like the argument from the other side is that, yes, but until it makes its way through the appellate courts, we just can't take that chance. So we're not willing to do that. So what we're going to do is we looked at what the cost of those water rate increases would be to recoup those monies. In the town, it would be an additional 27 cents per 1,000 gallons. For the school district, because we don't want to punish the town for what the school district is charging us on school taxes. And remember, they have a $70 million a year budget. 87 this
I
year?
believe it is.
Okay, well, that makes it even, versus the $3 million water budget that we operate on. It would probably close, Mike, $11.80 per 1,000 gallon increase. In that area, almost $12 increase to the school district. Before we do that, we'll prepare a resolution for the village board to consider. Council is drawing that up now to raise those rates. All it requires is a board vote. I could call the vote right now, and as long as we had 3 votes, the village board is the water authority, we could raise rates to whatever we wanted to. Obviously,
Excuse me.
$90 million. I'm sorry, Dave just pulled it up. The school district has a $90 million budget.
Looking at it.
Right. And remember, we're supplying water to the school district that also has children from town of New Windsor and the town of Woodbury that are students of the Cornwall Central School District. But we get charged, they don't. We get charged, the residents that pay into the water fund here, the village and the town residents, we get charged this tax, which dips into what our monies are. Now, why is that important? Well, we've already gone through the whole exercise of looking at it, the 1895 pipes, the 1927 pipes, and the 1955 pipes that are all decaying, breaking down, and failing, and that we're trying to replace. We just talked about reservoirs. Mike mentioned PFAS and PFAS. Reservoirs, one of our dams, we're looking at a minimum of $2 million to remediate the Sphagnum Dam, which is the 4th highest reservoir out of the 5 that we have. So this money, when you're operating on a $3 million budget, $200,000 is, I think it's like 7%. It's a big chunk of our budget, and we need that money for operating costs. However, before we do this, we're going to have a letter drafted. Michael, what you're working on,
You should have it in your email. I sent it to you on Monday.
Then I missed it. Then I'll go back and pull it up. I'll take a look at that. I'll send it to Joe.
I
Joe,
have it.
oh, you have it? Okay. And then we will send one letter to the Board of Education and obviously the school superintendent, one letter to the town, and basically make some type of offer of things in trade that we could do in return for having those, having those monies returned to us. So in lieu of, and it wasn't a pilot, what did you call it? It's not a payment in lieu of taxes, but
Like a services in lieu of.
silence or whatever it
Silent,
is,
yeah.
we would agree to do certain things in return for them exempting the property and saving us that money. So that's the plan for how we're going to go forward. So we'll have a resolution to raise the rates. We will table it.
Certain rates.
And it will be structured by residential rates, commercial rates. We'll have a structure system there. And that goes back also to what Michael was talking to in his report when he talked about doing a water rate analysis. We will have an outside company do a water rate analysis. You keep in mind that back in 1974, this village board, well, I was in the 4th grade and I don't think any of us were on the board at that time, but this village board did vote.
Don't look at
Why are you looking
at
at Jay? But this village board, made the rate plus 80% over what village residents and village consumers paid for water to anyone outside of the village. That included the school system. That included our friends and neighbors in the town. It was never, I shouldn't say never, slowly through the years, that gap closed from plus 80 to plus 70 to plus 55 to plus 40 and finally settled to where it is now, which is either plus 30 or plus 33%. 33%. So $16 to $12, which is a plus 33%. And the village board made the move recently to go ahead and strike that language from our code so that we have the ability still to set the rates at whatever they should be, but not at plus 80, that we would make a determination on what they should be. So we'll be working with an outside consultant firm to look at water rates. We will seek to recoup those monies, that $200,000, 31,000 of that I think is on average what the town charges us, and 157,000 on average is what the school district charges to recoup those monies. But we will seek first to send letters out, ask them to come to the table, have a meeting with our council, with their council. That means the school district, the town, and us, and sit down and talk about what's fair going forward. And if there's a better way of doing this, I'd love to see it, but we just need to recoup that chunk of what our water, our operating costs are, and a way to recoup those monies. So that's water rates. Any questions? I know you guys are pretty much filled in on that and aware of that, but any questions from the board?
Well, and just the point that structuring the rates that way would impose the increase on the consumers that are directly attributable to the cost increase to produce the water, as opposed to spreading it out to, as you would say, Mrs. McGillicuddy and her neighbor.
You mean the silent would
No,
Well,
what he
that's
means is
step two.
we're only going to look to raise the town rate so that Miss
Creating-
McGillicuddy doesn't
Yeah.
get punished from the
For-
school district.
So I'll just
Right.
point out that thing that I always point out, which is that the disparity in rates
Right.
between the village and the town is intended to chase that tax money that they refuse to waive.
We believe
for
so
us.
from the documentation that goes back to 1974. We believe that was the reason. There was nothing put into the memo that was written by the mayor at the time when he stated that he called a special meeting to raise the rates anywhere outside of the village plus 80%. But yes, we believe it was in relation to the taxes that were imposed.
Maybe everything old is new again.
Yeah. And there's other things that we could argue too. And again, this is part of the negotiation that we will set up. As Michael pointed out, the Catskill treatment plant hasn't been operational, what, Mike, 4 years?
4 years.
4 years. We're still getting charged the whole Magilla for that
Right.
property, even though we have a heavy paperweight sitting there that is not, it would cost us $1 million+ millions of dollars ostensibly to bring it online and to make it serviceable, but we're getting charged for having a water treatment plant there.
Well, as an additional method, based upon, we can get an appraisal, but since it is not operational, it'd be a valid reason to seek a tax cert reduction for that particular building.
It's unimproved.
So that's
right?
something that the village should consider going forward as well.
So what we're trying to do is bring everybody to the table and talk about it. Maybe there's a different solution again, so long as I can recoup that money for the water fund, I'm open. And Michael has given us a list of things that he thinks that can be siloted, SILOT, to put it in verb form for a means to work something out fair. Okay, so that's water rates. Firehouse inspection report. So I believe it was a year ago, last February, a year past that. So we're coming up on 2 years that our intrepid code enforcement officer performed an inspection of the Storm King Engine 2 firehouse and determined that there were a number of violations, most importantly, which were the gaps or spaces between the cinder blocks in several locations within the building. And this is all in the newer portion of the building, 1974, Mike? The new
78.
78, that's right. 1903, the original, and then 1978, the extension, which is where all the bays are, was put on. Obviously, it was built on fill. Obviously, the building settled. Obviously, the concrete floor has cracked due to that settling, and the shifting in between the cinder blocks has caused some fairly deep gaps in between. We saw that there had been some things put on there to measure it, which happened during the Mayor Moulton regime. So that was sometime between 1981. I'm sure it didn't happen that soon till he left in 2007. But our engineers came out and looked at it and said it was still safe to inhabit the building, but we never closed it out with a report since a significant amount of time had transpired in between. And at the request of the chair of the fire commission, I had the engineers come back out. We did another walkthrough with the captain from the fire company, with our chair of the fire commission, myself, and the engineers. They filled out a report, many of which I know that you have a copy of.
Yes.
And you can close that violation out with that, correct?
No.
You cannot close that violation out with that. It's an ongoing,
Yes.
okay, got you. So while we were there, the next question becomes, what can we do with this building that's been around since 1903? And for the first time, I got a tour of the basement, or what I refer to as the catacombs, as well as the upstairs, the portion above the original 1903 firehouse. And the building needs a ton of work. And I know that this village board just committed, after we had a long period where we weren't in a position to be able to purchase or foresee purchasing apparatus to make sure that we didn't have an entire fleet that was obsolete like we do right now. And obviously we're tracking on that. We've already committed to buying a pumper tanker and doing that. We're committed to being on schedule to be, have to plan and budget out ahead for further equipment and apparatus that we need. But we do need to look, and it's going to be a while, but at something, whether or not we remediate that building, whether we tear the building down. Obviously, moving the building is not a reasonable plan, probably going ahead. That property is the perfect location for it. But obviously, since it's on fill, there are a couple things that we can do to check on the stability of that fill. There's an engineering term called borings, I guess, where they run these. Dave, are you familiar with borings, Mike? Essentially, you just go through and check the soil and it's substrata.
Mike, didn't we have borings done years ago? This is our first time we're having them. I thought.
As far as I know,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had Jason a year ago, February. So we're talking February of 2022. Is that when we did the original walk, Rick? I think so. When we had gone there, Jason had gotten an estimate on what it would cost to do those borings. And what they would do is just come in and they would check in certain parts.
Oh, okay,
see-
that's probably why.
That's
Okay, got it. All right.
yes. So we did get an estimate on that.
Okay.
And that would probably be the first step if the village
Yeah.
board is amenable to, to spending the money to do that. I think, was it like $20,000 or something like that? $30,000. That's right. Jason guessed 20 and then came back and the estimate was $30,000. But for us to pay to do that, I mean, because, when you see, if you haven't, you should, trustees, is get in touch with fire chair or the commissioner or the chief or assistant chief or captain and get a tour of the facility. Go downstairs into the catacombs and look at what they're dealing with when they do get floods down there, and what's been ripped out and the original stone foundation that's been there for 100+ years. and look at it, and then look at their meeting spaces upstairs. Yes, they have downstairs, but the bay being so short and not adequate for the things that they need by OSHA regulations and by the fire safety code stuff. They need a decon area. They need a lot of things. It needs to be retrofitted. Does it make more sense to knock it down and build a new one? Does it make more sense to retrofit it? We're not going to solve this tonight. I'm throwing this out there to the board and saying, these are things that we should reasonably consider.
Did you say you had 2 estimates for the borings?
I think we only have one.
I thought it was
So,
on.
so to clarify, the engineer never forwarded the boring estimate because they felt that it was too much money.
Yeah.
And he quoted at the walkthrough 10 grand. It turns out it's almost 30 grand,
Right.
and that price is almost a year old. We didn't feel that it was his determination on what was too expensive for us or not, so they were never sent. But on page 2 of the first part of the report, there's short and long-term solutions, and we're requesting at a minimum that we can, and also to help with Manny's report, is the short term to the cracked mortar be cleaned and patched with mortar that contains additives for flexibility and waterproofing. I think we should move on that as soon as we can, and then I don't know whose budget it comes out of, but the borings should be done to determine what's going on around the building.
And Manny, would the replacement of the mortar satisfy the violation?
No, I'm gonna answer for him only
Sorry.
because,
Yeah.
because there are other things on there that we met with Dave. There are other things on there, some electrical outlet covers, like some minor stuff that just needs to be done. This is your report. If you want to speak more about
That's
it,
fine. I mean,
but there are other things. It's
I
not just,
think it's just talking about, the report from Jason as far as the wall.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we're gonna keep open. I mean, I'm not gonna close it by this Sunday observation. It's something that the building, like the mayor said, you gotta make a decision sooner or later, one way or the other, because it's not gonna get better. That's
Right.
for sure.
But this short-term solution that they identified in this report, for that portion of the
We'll
report
keep
that you
on the record
prepared,
that the engineer went out, his recommendation, and we'll just keep it on the record.
well, I'm saying, if the village said, yep, let's do this recommendation, we're gonna inject it with new mortar that's more flexible, would that satisfy that particular piece of the violation?
Yes,
All right.
Now, to do that, Dave, that's obviously, I'm guessing, something that we'd have to bring an outside contractor to do. Okay. Having seen those cracks in there, I don't know what construction costs are. Are we talking about something that we need to go out to bid? Or is this a small enough project where,
I would have to ask Jason on that.
okay,
I mean, how extensive they're gonna go.
well, I would imagine it means putting fill in between all the cracks that we
Yeah, I mean,
identified.
If you just,
Jason will have to design that.
yeah,
And just for historical purposes, those cracks developed, I want to say, within about 3 years of the build of that building.
So it could have been 1981 when Molten.
Well, that's when I believe the measurement devices went on in the 90s,
mid-90s.
mid-90s or so. And those cracks have been filled in several times. So they just keep
Right.
deteriorating. So while his suggestion of using some mortar with some elasticity to it and whatnot, it's wonderful. It's not a long-term solution.
Right. But obviously, it's something that we could do now. Now, is that going to make the building, and I'm not an engineer, the building safer to be in? I mean, obviously, you don't want cracks in there where anything can get in between. And if they've got stuff that you can put in between now that, is more elastic or, fills the expanse and contracts and expands with, heat and building settling and all that, then we should go ahead and do that. But that's not going to be the long-term solution to, does the building need to be renovated or does the building ultimately need to be knocked down and rebuilt? So, all right. So for this step, I'll contact Jason, or Dave, you'll contact Jason and say,
I'll be on the phone with him tomorrow,
perfect.
on later.
And ask him if he can provide us the plan on that. And then is the board interested in spending the $30,000? And again, what budget line do I take this out of?
well, there's a firehouse maintenance line, but that's for daily operations.
Right, and I don't think that could support a $30,000 hit right now,
I
could it?
don't know what your contingency is, but
Yeah, our contingencies you mean our contingency from Gen A?
Mhm.
Yeah, our contingency's taken a huge hit this year, filling in for, emergency things.
I have
Well,
an emergency.
So what about, all
Yeah,
right, what about,
and we got another emergency.
Why
I'm
don't we-
about to break it out to you in a minute.
all right, why don't we do this? Why don't we address the short term?
Yeah, we don't have
And
a quote
then
for
we
that
add
now.
the additional into contingency or a line for next year's budget, we knock it out.
When you say we knock it out, the borings or
Correct,
the,
the borings.
Yeah,
Okay.
budget for
Next
the
year's
boring for
budget.
next year, but we need a
Yes.
quote for the
Yeah, so I mean, well,
injection of
we'll get a roundabout from, well, the borings, we already know, around
Right.
30,000. The other mortar one, Dave will
36
find
or
out from
37,000, I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
it was in there.
But if you want to do the boring,
26.
26 for the borings, but I don't see, there's no number for the,
No, the mortar.
for the
Yeah, it's not
mortar.
gonna be.
But I thought,
if you want to spend $30,000 to do the boring, just to get information to sit on the desk, why don't you just wait until you make the decision if you want to replace the building, and now you can use that information to actually do something on how to replace this building on that particular soil that you're gonna.
Well, isn't doing the borings gonna help inform us of whether or not we would actually rebuild on it or what needs to be done? Because eventually the boring's gonna have to be done regardless,
That's what I'm
correct?
saying, so do it when you're more ready. I mean, if the building's not.
what
ready
he's
for
saying, because it
tomorrow,
could change from
it
one
could
year to
change.
the next. Does that change the substrata?
Remember
You
Jason
you
talked
may
about
have to
water?
do it again if
About
you
water?
wait too long to do it.
There's water
That's
flow
what I'm
into that.
saying.
And I think in Jason's report there, he may indicate that doing them now will help you decide if you're gonna renovate or tear down and
Canopy,
rebuild.
And,
that's-
and what Jason pointed out, there's water that runs underneath of that. So we have water that runs under the fill there, which I think is gonna make it inherently perpetually unstable. Because you're not gonna stop that. You're not gonna stop the water from flowing there. So, and I'm not being facetious, and I say, well, then you pick
No,
up and you move someplace
because-
else, but where else are you gonna move to?
Well, what happened was, not to age myself, but there was a stream behind that firehouse
Yep.
that now runs under. the
Under there.
firehouse.
in the drainage basin.
Because when we
there,
pave,
edge,
Through
right?
pipes.
You can put
Used
the
to run
new-
all the way down through Clark, Cherry, all the way.
And when you read old newspaper
Bruce
articles,
Bryan's yard had a
Yep.
pretty good sized
when you
stream
read
running through
old
it.
newspaper articles about when that was constructed, that's one of the complaints that then Chief Bob Brophy brought up, that you could stand in the building and hear water running underneath it.
Did you used to fish in that stream, Dave, when you were a kid?
No,
He
but we
stocked
caught
it.
frogs in there.
Okay, all right, Dave, you'll talk to Jason at a minimum right now about getting the cracks sealed. And then I probably need to have a conversation with him about the borings with the water, and does it make sense to do it now, or to Manny's point, does it make sense if we're not gonna immediately act upon it, to wait until a
I'll
time
ask
before we
him
would?
to put together a proposal to set an RFP, so to speak, to send out to a contractor to do it.
Perfect.
But to Mike's point, Jason writes, information obtained from the borings will aid in the foundation design for future repairs or capital projects such as replacement of the building.
Gotcha.
So he's saying boring is your first step to make a decision on what you want to do. And he did, I don't know if you recall, he did explain to us about, if we're gonna build on that site again, all kinds of substrate that can be used to,
Did they ever
for
do
water
an
to
injection
flow
under there?
That floor's been,
It's been injected more than, yeah.
Maybe that's
Concrete
what I was
floor
getting,
was
that's what
injected.
happened.
Yeah, they did
Years
injections.
ago, did
They
an
usually
injection.
work, but
That's
they're
what it
short
was.
term.
I was
They don't
just gonna say,
last.
it's not
I
a
was
long.
getting it mixed up with the
Yeah.
boring. That was,
Yeah, if not, the ladder would probably be underwater.
I wanna
Well,
say
the
there's
latter
probably been
floor
at
was
least 3
replaced.
times that they've
Oh.
done injections.
Completely
Yeah, I think
replaced?
twice since I've been
Says
on the
Mike.
board. That's what I was
Yeah.
getting mixed up with the boring. It was the
The
injection.
entire ladder
floor.
floor's been replaced?
That, yeah,
Section completely,
Wow.
Dave's asking, completely
Yeah.
replaced?
And how is that faring?
not well.
So
And
it,
even the rescue truck, when you back the rescue truck in, you can see the floor cantilever.
yeah, I know, I've seen it.
And there are companies out there when it comes time, that they specialize in designing fire stations. They can help you look at
No doubt.
renovation and.
So why don't we have our short-term plan would be to take care of the cracks in between the cinder blocks. our medium term, which would have to be in next year's budget, which we would have to project. And this next budget, because the new CSEA contract is probably going to go into effect, and we are going to be looking at a substantial hit to the budget. And we've been successfully avoiding raising taxes, at least substantially, but we are looking at, with the next two contracts, because right after the CSEA contract, the PVA contract's coming in after that, we have to budget for that as well. But I would argue that we put this into next year's budget to do the borings. That would be the first step. Before we make any.
We could decide not to do the borings, but as long as we have in the budget, we have the option.
Right.
Manny has a point. I get it.
Yep. Okay. All right. Well, that brings me to the next thing. See, I love when these things are,
Nice segue.
Yes. So the fire department administrative assistant, and I think when we talked about this last time, I might have raised it and I forget what the answer was, or maybe there wasn't an answer. For the village to hire this administrative assistant for the firehouse, what budget does that come out of? Does that come out of the firehouse budget? Because I've gone back and looked, and there are no records right now of the village paying for an administrative assistant for the firehouse. Could that have been paid out of some fund and, it just wasn't earmarked? But what I've heard from research is that this occurred sometime during the 90s. That there was 80s.
Yeah, because I was the person.
Okay.
I used to get a village paycheck from it.
Okay. All right. So late 80s. So that makes it even more difficult as we're trying to.
And what were you doing?
I was doing all the secretarial work for the then Chief Armitage,
Gotcha.
administrative work.
Right. Okay. So Mike, you don't know, obviously at that age, you probably weren't asking, excuse me, what budget line does this come out of?
Yeah, it came out of, I think, Firematic, one of them.
It came out of one of the budgets. Okay. So right now is, the front office has undergone some fairly seismic changes in regards to hiring personnel and people retiring and people leaving for other municipalities, things like that. We are going to be, unfortunately, losing Barbara, who is our records management clerk. And we hired Barbara as an intern, just like we did with Joe Gill. And then Joe Gill, unfortunately, passed away while he was in the position, but he took the job on first. It was a grant that we had gotten through New York State to set up a records management room, which we've been blessed to now have set up back in the back in what used to be the water superintendent's office. And now it is a climate controlled, meets all the current safety code, records protection, archival requirements from New York State for our records. Joe started it, unfortunately passed away. We then had a litany of, I think it was either 2 or 3, maybe even 4 young folks that came in and lasted a week or 10 days or 2 weeks. I barely learned their name, and then they were moving on. It is tough work, and it's not exciting work unless you're into that kind of stuff. But we lucked upon finding Barbara, who's a village resident, who worked for us for the last couple of years. We were able to take that position, which ran out when the grant ran out. It was for 1 calendar year. The village board agreed to make it a position for a year, and then we re-upped it for a second year, and in all likelihood, we would have re-upped it for a 3rd year. Barbara is, unfortunately for us, going to be moving on, and that's going to free up that position. One of the things that Barbara was able to do for us up here, since the village board reconfigured things, and our deputy village clerk is also our full-time treasurer now. So Megan spends a lot of time in the treasurer's office preparing for the budget, getting things ready, end of month things, and doing treasurer work that we had budgeted for the village, but we had never had a full-time. We had a full-time treasurer, but then we had a part-time treasurer, and then the village ultimately just hired Jean Mahoney, who is gifted at doing a lot of things at once and was able to handle that with village clerk duties. So what I'm going to recommend, because when we talked about what kind of hours this administrative assistant for the firehouse would be, is hiring a part-time clerk and then splitting, because when I threw it out to the chief and threw it out to you guys last time, I want to say it was like, well, maybe possibly 10 hours a week. And then maybe once they learn everything, it could be less or it could be more depending upon how well it goes. But what I'm going to recommend, and I spoke to the board about this, is potentially posting and hiring a part-time clerk who then would have 3 responsibilities. the records room now, Barbara and Joe Gill and the other short-termers have brought it from the 18th century into the 21st century. It's gone from the Stone Age, and it is amazing what they've done. We can put that on pause, bring somebody on, use them like we used Barbara as a floater to cover the front office up here. So if Megan is working on treasurer stuff, or one of the, the clerk is sick, or Paul is sick, and we're losing somebody, or Jacqueline, who's our part-time clerk up here, is out, have that person be that same floater and have her work those three, her or him work those three responsibilities. Administrative assistant to the firehouse for a certain percentage of those 20 hours per week. Part-time clerk that works underneath the village clerk for so many hours or a percentage of that week, and then records management clerk. So that's what I'm recommending to the board, that we would do that. We would just have to sit down, and it would probably be the chief, chair of the fire commission, myself, the village clerk, and figure out exactly how much time we think those responsibilities would need to be devoted to the firehouse, and then work around that. And obviously, when you can do things remotely now, much of that work could probably be done up here. She wouldn't, or he need to sit down in the fire bay next to the pumper tanker and do work there, probably do it here. So if the village board is okay with that, I will work up a posting. And as Paula pointed out to me today, you can obviously say you're hiring a part-time clerk with other duties as assigned, that language, could be used to say, hey, we want to let you know you're going to be working, 3 separate things: part-time clerk, records management clerk, and administrative assistant to the firehouse. Any input, any pushback, any agreement, disagreement? I think the board is on board with that. Okay. All right, moving on. The tree law. All right, so trustees, I know that you all have seen various, I'm excited about this. Oh, we're getting to that next. I'm not going to steal Lori Beth's thunder. So the tree law. I know that I saw Trustee Brain's advisements. I saw Joe's, what I believe was the final rendition of this. Where do we stand on potentially taking a position on this? I know that Manny had also raised some thoughts, issues, concerns. Where's the board feeling we are on this?
Well, just to recap, the final version that I sent before the last meeting incorporated Manny's comments, Bill's comments, and everything else that I had received. So that is essentially the last draft.
Oh, okay.
So what I'm looking for is if anybody has more questions or more comments or suggestions.
I sent it to, I would normally meet with the CACC tonight as the liaison from the village. Obviously we have this meeting, so they do meet tonight, and I sent that to them for any possible comments they might have.
And Dave, it was substantially the law that the CAC recommended to the town.
Yep.
We are, it's probably
you made a
at
couple
least
clarifications in language and stuff.
It's
That's a
probably
little bit different than the town.
just a little.
But it doesn't change anything. In sum and substance.
No,
The-
it doesn't.
The one thing is that the town law had the included language about 1 and 2 family homes that we had taken out, but the recommendation was, and based on circumstances of seeing large lots where people cut a lot of trees, we put it back in with a restriction about size of potential removals.
Line here. Now we're back online.
I can't recall whether the 1 and 2 family included
didn't,
originally,
The town.
but we did.
Oh, not at all, no.
Yeah. one thing.
Regardless, I mean, the version now does capture the 1 and 2 family homes under certain circumstances.
Right, certain
Okay.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
But the town's
limited.
version
Do you have
doesn't have
any-
that.
I don't.
Beth, do you have any issues with it? All right, so
They took it out.
with just those tweaks, and they were a little bit more than tweaks, but with those changes, our next step would be to post this available to the public, and then to have a public hearing on us passing it.
We have an open.
We have it
Yeah,
open.
we have it open.
Yes.
The public hearing is open.
We
I
haven't received any
believe we-
comments yet.
Well, we have,
No, we
well, we
have.
read,
No, I mean.
We kept it
public-
open on the
Right,
meeting
yeah.
last
There was
month
no
but that
public.
you weren't.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
Right.
right. That's
actually, Dave, we have received a lot of comments because informally we referred it to the planning board and the
Right,
ZBA. So, and all
The
of those
building
comments
inspector.
and the building inspector, so all those comments have
Yes, they're
already
in
been
there.
included. The purpose of keeping the public hearing open was because you could argue that there had been some substantial changes.
Right.
It's close, but there were certainly changes. So we left it open so that both the board and anyone else that wanted to comment could do so. We should probably just confirm whether Doris has posted that last draft to the village website, because it is essentially the last and final version unless someone has additional changes. So as long as it's been out there, available to the public, and the board has no further comments, then we can adopt the law at the next meeting. Subject to whatever verbal comments the public might have. at
I'll
that
check
time.
with Doris tomorrow to see that that has been done. If that hasn't been done, then we'll ensure that it is done. And then we have 2 weeks till our
Yeah.
next, actually less than 2 weeks. Is that a fair amount of time, or do we need to push this down to December?
The changes, it has been posted before. So
Yes.
it's not like this is just something brand.
No, but we've made changes to it, and is 10 days not enough time? Not
It
fair.
would not be unfair. And, the board can, if the board chose to, one interim step the board could take would be to close the public hearing as to public comment and allow any further written submission.
So we'll close it on the 18th. We'll allow written submissions until the December meeting, and then we'll vote.
Or,
Well, prior to the December meeting, you give them like 2 weeks,
yeah,
an additional
How
10
would we do
days.
it before that? We would just,
No, at
the
our
written
meet-
comments. People could submit written comments.
Yes, written comment.
so what if we
You
get
give 'em a
no written
deadline.
comments?
Well, then you
Well,
can
then
just
we
simply
pass it.
adopt it in December.
That's what I'm saying. And you shook your head.
I was
No,
just
you were
saying-
You said that
You were saying
exactly.
taking written comments up until the date of the meeting. Bill and I were saying, yeah, you don't wanna, I'm assuming that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
That, no, we don't take it up until the day that we have our meeting. You cut it off at date certain that we'll take written comments, receipt of written comments until, December 1 or something something like that.
Oh, no, I was thinking I would prefer that we vote on it in 2 weeks, or I guess it's 10 days, but if people don't feel that's a generous enough allotment, we have aired the change at our last business meeting. We did say what the change was, and it's
Right.
the only change that's in
Yeah.
any way
Council, are you
significant.
comfortable with it if we voted on it?
It is, if it hasn't already been posted and it's posted, let's say tomorrow, it just has to go
Yeah.
on the website. Yes, I'd be comfortable with
I
that.
All right.
think it has, but I want to confirm from Doris, and then, all right, but that makes sense to me, so long as you tell me that that's enough time and that we're being fair.
Honestly, we haven't received any comments from the public at all in the months that this has been out
Right,
there.
So,
I don't
so,
expect that we're gonna get
I
that in
don't
the next
either.
2 weeks.
But I'll be the
So-
one to take the heat. It won't be you if it's,
I-
why did you only
Oh,
do
I-
it? Give us 10 days.
I believe
Well-
they'll review this soon, so they may have comments.
And you
which
know
is
what,
good.
David,
We
if
want
someone
comments.
reaches out to you and says, hey, listen, we really want to give the board comments,
Yeah.
then this board can just simply
Yeah.
hold it open at the next
That's
meeting.
the CCAC, you
You
mean?
have
Yes.
all your options
Yeah,
available.
It's their law though, right?
Talking to her right now, yeah. Yeah, but ours is
A little bit different, yeah, I get it.
Which
Okay.
they probably like.
All right. So, all right, thank you. That helps. I'll follow up with Doris on that tomorrow, Joe, and then, yeah, that will be my plan then, is to hold it open for written comment, close the written comment before the next meeting, and then pass the resolution at the November 18th meeting, which would be 2 weeks from this past Monday. Okay. All right. Fourth full-time police officer. I know this is something that has been discussed innumerable times. Jim Kane could probably speak to it, because I remember when there was talk of, getting rid of the full-time police officers in the village. We have 3 full-time police officers that cover the A, B, and C line. And then we have anywhere from, Chief, usually 9 part-time police officers.
Budgeted for 9, currently I have 8.
And they cover all the shifts. They do a great job. And obviously, when we have events and things where you need more police officers, there are extra shifts. The chief makes that determination on what he needs and positions them. One of the things that they discussed and brought up at one of the recent town meetings was the fact that because the village does not have 4 full-time police officers, every time the town responds into the village, they have the ability to bill us for it. Now, the village responds into the town also whenever there's and it's not mutual assistance when it's Cornwall and Hudson. I'm sure you could call it mutual assistance, but we're part of the same community and standard. If we're responding, they come in to assist and vice versa. But the town was flirting with the idea as they were going through their budget session of charging us for that because we don't have 4 full-time police officers. Now, a year or so ago, I remember the deputy mayor had asked, "Hey, chief, tell us what the cost benefit analysis is. Do a comparison and contrast. If we go to 4 full-time police officers, it means you can have fewer part-time officers. How does that hit?" And looking at it, I think the numbers came out to be fairly negligible, except for the fact that if you bring on another full-time police officer, you are now going to be paying for healthcare. You're going to be paying for a pension. You're going to, they're going to get everything that is afforded an entitlement or right for a full-time village employee. But having a 4 full-time police officer is also helpful for assignments and things like that. I asked the chief to look into this, like whether or not the board should consider this. Is it going to be cost prohibitive to do it? Does it not make sense to do it for that reason? And I don't want to use the term threat. The town's not threatening us, but I'm saying, is the concern that we could be charged for town vehicles responding within the incorporated limits of the village? And I just had him do a crunch, and he and I talked today, and he asked me, would it be appropriate to speak about it here tonight? I said, absolutely. The board needs the information. And with that, I'll turn it over to the chief.
So as the mayor said, obviously there's pros and cons to hiring a 4th full-timer. The pros obviously would be familiarity with the residents here, that, people would see the officer.
Just figure you could talk to them.
More often, have, contact with the person on a regular basis. The cons, obviously, we would most likely lose at least half, if not more, of the part-time officers because their monthly hours would dwindle. Currently, right now, barring vacations, military leave, personal time, there are 30 shifts a month that I have to fill with part-time staff. So obviously, if I went and hired another full-timer, that would bring it down to around 10 shifts a month to be divided between 8 guys.
So 1 shift per
Nobody's gonna
officer.
stay.
Yeah, plus they're paying PBA dues out of their checks,
They're
so
not staying.
would it be worth for them to even stay?
No.
Another thing is, obviously, the village has a large volume of events throughout the course of the year. And many of these events require more than 2, 3, or 4 officers. So by having less part-time officers would create an issue with that. My thing too, and I was talking to the mayor about this, the thing that was discussed at the town board meeting, if this was even looked into, this would definitely cause friction and discord between the 2 police departments. Right now, we have a very good rapport with the town. We work very well together. I've known Chief Gebert since he was 17 years old. My guys get along good with all the town guys, so forth. We're always there for one another. If there's a hot call, we know to go there, or they come here. So, that's important. Just to throw out some statistics too, from the beginning of this year up to the present date, we've backed the town up 69 times. During 2023, we backed the town up 96 times. And then in 2022, we backed up the town 89 times. Obviously, they back us up, but they have much more calls for service. I mean, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I would definitely say that we're probably about equal as far as backing them up, as far as them backing us up. So hopefully that wouldn't come to fruition. Again, the biggest thing I think would cause friction between the officers. How do you decide when the town officer would come in here? Do you ask for the town officer, or would they just respond and then we'd be billed accordingly? So I've been with the town and the village between the 2 police departments for 23 years. So I noticed this come across a couple of times. But hopefully, that wouldn't happen.
Is there any indication when we're gonna know whether or not they're gonna pull the trigger on this?
Well, I don't think it got factored into their budget because I think they're in the final phases of approving their budget, and it was something the supervisor threw out there, and you know, and he acknowledged, I'm not saying this is what we're doing, but it's something that, you know, we could consider. So I don't know if it was, you know, where the push came on that. I had never heard of this before, and I asked him about it, and he said, well, hey, it's you're allowed to do it if the department you're responding to doesn't carry, you know, on their, you know, their roster 4 full-time officers. And I said, well, look, we have looked into having a 4th full-time officer,
Right.
but it's based on financing and scheduling and all
Yeah.
of those things. But I don't want to be, you know, put into a corner where, you know, if I don't have 4 full-time officers, now we start getting a bill from the town for X amount of dollars for response, especially as the chief points out. We don't have the stats on when the town responds here. We only have the stats on when we respond there.
Right.
They would have those stats. But I'd like to see a comparison
Yeah.
between, you know, the chief believes
Yeah, if it's
anecdotally.
reciprocal mutual aid, then it seems out of joint to
Yeah,
do that.
especially since they have far more road and far more residents.
Mhm.
You know, we have a smaller amount of road and fewer residents.
What do they typically, they have 2 officers on
2
duty.
officers on duty.
Yeah.
Because they got a bigger territory.
Just to clarify too, so
Way
the state deems if you have less than 4 full-time officers, the state deems your department as a part-time police department. So 4 or more, you're deemed a full-time police department.
So that's
Yeah.
what would allow them then to essentially send us a bill for those
That happened a
responses.
couple of years ago with the village of Montgomery.
Well, this came up 14 years ago too.
Yeah. Did it?
And it was kind of like, it was brought up and then we're like, look, we're gonna have enough part-timers, because we did start thinking about going completely part-time.
Remember that.
And then it was all kind of tamped down. It was fine because we told them we're definitely gonna have 3 full-timers all the time, which we have. So.
You're right, because I remember when we only had 2 full-time
That's right.
officers and everything else was part-time.
Yes, so,
Right now, I think, in my opinion, I think we have a really good base right now. We just hired some 2
I agree.
part-timers.
You will.
And,
Yeah, we're at 8 now. We were
Our
at 6
part-timers
for a little
will
while. We were
Yeah.
even below that for a
I'd
short
rather-
period,
that's the
right?
lowest
Typically what
we've
we
gone,
have.
but right now, I think we have a good base now. We have 3 good full-timers.
Yep.
they have to
And-
pass their budget by when? I'm sorry to interrupt, but they have to pass their budget by when?
Theirs
They run
goes
January?
into effect on January 1, so I'm gonna guess has to be done by
So,
December 1.
So let's wait and see.
Okay.
How is it decided if you're going to go into the town or if the town's gonna come and aid you?
Sometimes they'll request you or vice versa, but most of the time it's just a good faith effort. If
Yeah,
you- if
so-
You hear the calls.
Right, right.
If you
And
know
if
that
you're
one
available,
officer
you
is
can go.
responding to a domestic dispute or somebody in cardiac
Then you
arrest
go.
or there's a fight, we're on the same channel, so
Yeah.
You're just
we're gonna hear
responding.
the call, so we're automatically
Sounds
gonna go. And same thing here. I mean, obviously, there's one officer working. If you're on a hot call, the town's gonna automatically come. So it's a very good working relationship we have between
Yeah.
both departments. So I wouldn't want to see that, you know.
Got it.
I mean, I haven't looked at the issue, but if the town can charge the village for, we'll call it mutual aid, for lack of a better term, not vice versa?
I don't think so
Because
because
they have
they're a
more.
full-time
Right,
department.
This is a part, okay.
And this is considered a
Yeah.
part-time department because we don't meet the definition of a full-time.
Right.
So
And at
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
full-
you become full-time.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna keep this as a placeholder. I think to tend to agree with Jim. Let's wait and see. I did not hear any further discussion on that. I'm assuming the supervisor would call me and say, hey, look, this is what we're looking to do. I have not gotten that call, so I just wanted to bring you up to speed on it, and I asked the chief to dig in, find out the calls. You know, and chief, maybe that's something you could talk to Chief Gebbert at and say, hey, look, you know, let me share the number of times that we've come in. Can you give me the same, just so I have that information so my board is informed or something? Okay.
And no one has brought up the radioactive hot potato of, merging police departments, right? There's no.
Well, there's always talk about dissolving the village that you hear coming up from time to time.
You know, in 23 years, I've heard that pop up, you know, every day.
Yes,
Yeah.
I've heard it referred to periodically as well. All
Yeah,
right,
it's like,
nobody's
it's almost
serious about
cyclical,
it.
comes around every,
All
right.
right.
Okay, moving on. Stormwater management system evaluation. When Jason and his crew of intrepid engineers came to look at the firehouse, I asked him to provide me an estimate for the village board of what the cost would be to do an analysis, an evaluation, not a master plan like was done with the water system. And remember, this village board paid $88,000 for the master plan. But essentially just a review of, hey, look, this is, you need to look at this right away. This needs to be changed or whatever. So Dave, we left it with him to get us a price and an estimate on what that would cost.
Yeah, we're concentrating basically on the mountain system.
Okay.
Because obviously that feeds into everything down here.
And
So
we have to reverse engineer it, obviously, starting at the bottom.
Yeah.
And working up.
Okay, next, so I'll keep that's a placeholder. I'll keep the board advised on that. When we get the estimate, I will certainly make it available to the board. I believe it's something that we should invest in. When you got a system that, Dave, some of it's half a century old and some of it is a century or more old. And with the problems, the 4 hyper-localized storms we had in a 13-month period and how it overwhelmed our system, it's worth looking at.
And the new developments that have been put in on
Se-
Maple Mountain.
Yeah.
And Deer Hill roads.
Yeah. Okay, traffic issues and concerns. Obviously, I briefed the board in on the complaints and concerns from residents on Bayview with 218 being open and what can we do, and looking into all the different options for slowing traffic when the motorcycles or the weekend, hot rod car clubs come roaring down 218, come down the mountain. The mountain is now 35 miles per hour. You hit the village limits and it automatically goes to 30 miles per hour, which is why the chief has put one of our radar signs down there to let motorists know, what their speed is. But it's the sound, it's the mufflers, it's the fact that we're not enforcing the noise ordinance, we're not pulling cars over, and the people that live there are just frustrated, and they've reached out to Senator Skoufis's office and Assembly Member Ekis's office and the town supervisor and my office asking for some help. Obviously, 218 on the mountain doesn't belong to us. It belongs to the town and the town of Highlands, and it is a state road. So it's a New York State Police patrolled roadway, even though the town patrols it and the town of Highland patrols it, and our folks go on there too as need be. But as we're looking at this, we're trying to figure out more signage. What can we do? The chief has put more patrols out there and obviously more, I don't want to say speed traps, but radar stops, as you can see by the increased number on his report, which is good for me because I can go back to residents and say, no, I have tangible numbers. We are doing more out there. Which brings me to, Chief, I know Mrs. Wallace came to see you and she lives on, what is that, Curie?
Outside of Wild Park.
Yes. So that road that has the island in the middle of it, and it's got that strip of homes there by the apartment complex, and just being concerned, she's got 3 young children, the kids playing in the driveway and the people speeding down there. Interestingly enough, she came in to talk to the chief. She came in and talked to me. And was, look, just anything that can be done. She goes, I've done everything. We put cones at the end of our driveway. We put the slow kids sign, the little yellow with the little flag out, the plastic ones you get at Lowe's or Home Depot. We've done everything. She goes, I put 2 of them out there. And the interesting thing was, it's not out of towners and it's not out of neighborhood people. As she pointed out, it's people in the neighborhood.
It's the residents.
It's the residents of the neighborhood. So what the chief offer to do, Chief, I think it is a wonderful idea, is to maybe stop and do, since it's a limited number of homes along there, but maybe on nice days like today, to stop and do a knock and talk to residents there and just say, hey, please keep in mind, we've noticed or detected there's been, we got young kids in this block, it's young families on here, please.
And that's a change.
Yeah.
I did that we
Yeah.
did actually last week, myself and Officer Rodriguez did that.
Excellent. Excellent.
Plus
So
we did some radar enforcement.
Yeah.
as well.
And I told her that, maybe in the next month or so, I'll put out a mayor's message again, because it's not just in springtime when kids out there playing, but when we get a big heavy snowfall, which we're due one, sorry, Dave, but we're due one, and you got these mounds of snow and these kids playing out there and they're running out there. So thank you for doing that. I know when she told me that you offered that, I said, that's a great idea. Just the first step. We'll try to, and it's every neighborhood, but this is one neighborhood that's, you know, that came to see us about it. The next thing was the Duncan Avenue traffic pattern. We've gone through this round and round and round. Dave can certainly speak to Duncan Avenue, having lived there for much of his life. But people still concerned, and me not having an answer to them when they go, hey, I pulled down Duncan. I've got a young kid now who's driving, finally got his driver's license, and trying to pull out onto Hudson Street, almost got T-boned. And I'm like, yeah, we just haven't had horrific accidents there, which is a good thing. But do we want that to be what the village board is doing? Well, nothing has happened there. There was one fender bender, and that's been it in the last 25 years. So we're not doing anything. But every time we talk about this, we go round and round circles. It's not our road. We can't put a mirror there. What else can be done there with the exception of completely reworking that intersection?
And that would be state DOT.
We wouldn't be
Right.
able to do it.
And state DOT has come out there and they've looked at, they've explored different options, such as a roundabout, which would take away the village bandstand and other properties.
I mean, is the problem the speed of the cars going?
Probably
down?
mostly, yeah.
Wait,
Mm.
from where? From
For-
out of
so
Duncan
for-
or from?
No
on?
visibility, it's a corner,
No,
no
no.
I
visibility.
understand.
Coming past
so-
Cumberland,
Yeah.
Right.
and when you're making that right turn,
Well,
we
I
all
mean,
know
a lot
that
of
there's.
times I see people coming out of Duncan and they're going fast right across and they don't see that you're coming down.
Exactly.
So, I mean, if the problem is the speed coming down Hudson, can we stick a slow turn sign or something?
It's pretty slow.
I think there is one there.
There's
Is
there's crosswalk
There's a
signs.
crosswalk
All
there
right.
too.
There's firehouse ahead sign, there's reduced speed sign because
Oh,
of the
okay.
school zone.
See how much I look at the signs.
And it.
But you
know what
probably
is- you
slow
know what is
down.
the worst to get
That's
out
the
of there,
thing.
honestly? First thing in the morning, when
Yeah.
every
It's the school.
mother is
Yeah.
dropping their
Driving,
child
yeah.
off at school.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the line is backed up to
Well,
Deputy
See,
Mayor
when you
Kane's
live there
house.
for when you live there for a long time, you learn to do what's called the half and half.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
don't
that-
go
you have
all
to
the
do
way
that in a lot of
across. You
places.
go to the middle.
Did you do that?
I
with your
suggested
horse?
making.
And you use the window of the, as Dave, you pointed out, you use the window of the jewelry store
The
across the
jewelry
street to
store
use
window.
as
You
a
can only do that
reflector.
at night.
We used
You
to
can't do
sleigh
it during the
ride down
day.
that, right on
Dave,
down,
wait,
down
Dave-
River Avenue.
Dave did it with his horse back in the day.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's-
We used to do it with
I
sleds.
suggested making it one way at one point. because
Making what
everybody-
one way, Duncan?
Yeah, one way up.
Good luck with that.
Oh,
You want my
my-
house to be
If-
burned down?
If it's
Yeah.
that, if it's that dangerous,
It's
you go
not.
in the other
It's
direction.
not.
So
50
just-
years.
Just make it,
I never want to say I never saw because then something happens.
Right.
And you see
Yeah.
it.
right.
I mean, I saw maybe a couple little ones, but
Yeah.
nothing. And just remember one thing. So, like I said, I don't want to age myself, but there used to be a lot of, there was municipal buses back in the day that ran from Newburgh, that ran regularly to Newburgh through Cornwall. And when you went to West Point, you went via 218 with a bus. So there was a lot more bus traffic back in the day. Now, granted, there's a way more school bus traffic than there was in those days because everybody had to walk. Now everybody gets a bus.
Yeah.
That's a problem too.
Right.
But it does slow people down.
All right.
And mirrors present a problem
Mm.
with sunlight.
And also you'd have to take away,
Reflections. You
you-
have cars coming the other direction.
you'd have to take away parking across the way too, to put a mirror, because you got parking along there.
Yeah.
So, Churchill Street, Dave, where are we on that?
Council, I believe, was preparing the resolution for removal of that section of code.
I
Drew.
prepared the resolution.
Getting rid of Village Law 1 of
Yeah,
2000.
we did it.
I think we
Well,
passed it last
We
month.
passed
No,
it.
no, you adopted
Oh,
the
right,
resolution.
The resolution, because you have to have a public hearing.
Yeah,
We haven't had the public
so-
hearing.
Oh,
yet.
we set the
We
public
set the
hearing.
public hearing.
last-
Set the
last
public
meeting.
hearing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I actually did the law. I
It
haven't
should be
distributed.
at the 18th meeting, the public hearing should be.
Right,
the
and
18th.
the law
Yeah.
is as simple as, the law will say, local law blank of 24 hereby
Right.
repeals
I think
local
you, I
law,
think you wrote it
whatever.
already. I saw it. I think it was part of the
It was probably
resolution
just a
passing
text in
the,
the, yeah.
So the
I
public
know I
hearing
did
is
the-
on the 18th, which is
Week
Monday
and a
night.
half away.
Right, what?
Week and a half away.
week and a half away.
Right,
Okay,
so we
all
have,
right.
I think, 4
yeah,
public hearings.
yeah.
Okay.
I knew, yeah. It,
But that's as simple as you can get.
pro forma. Okay, next item is part-time building inspector. So, I interviewed a candidate for the building inspector position who had been the head building inspector in Plattekill, had worked in Newburgh. Seems like a good candidate. Before I move forward with the board, I had him go down and sit with our building inspector to see if this was gonna be a good fit. They had a conversation, and then he was directed to get back in touch with me, and the building inspector to say, yes, I'm interested in taking this job, or no, I'm not. Manny, was that 2 weeks ago?
Yes, sir.
So that was 2 weeks ago. So this morning I reached out and just said, hey, just need to know what your, position is. Can you give me a shout? I have not heard back. That was just this morning. So it's not like, but in the interim, Manny has offered, remember we talked about less than full-time position in the interim, to possibly do an extra day a week to handle some of the load. Now, since we don't have Mr. Moore working for us anymore and we have not hired somebody new, he and I are going to meet with Paula, our deputy village treasurer, on Monday to ensure we don't go afoul of any part-time versus full-time, that, we don't do anything outside of that. And if that's the case, if the board has no problem with it, I've advised him that as long as it is okay by the county and the board supports it, we would allow him to work an extra day a week.
Sure.
Board agree or
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
with that?
Yes.
Okay, there you go.
No choice.
Okay, next item, sewer credits. So during attorney-client, there were 2 issues that were presented to us that the board reviewed regarding a backup sewage into somebody's house from our main. And a second one, a billing that was sent to the wrong address for the owner of a 2-family in regards to sewer capital. The board made decisions on both of those. No need to discuss what those decisions are because they will be discussed publicly at the business meeting and voted on then. But that's what the sewer credits were. The board reviewed it in attorney-client because it was involving individual residents, and we will do it anonymously at the next meeting. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. This was something that the building inspector and I had talked to the village clerk about. Manny brought this to me and asked about this. What are we looking to do here? And Joe, obviously this pertains to you and it pertains to P and D, but Manny, really quick, the time limit that we're looking for bill backs is that when we bill somebody something that is before the zoning board of appeals or the planning board, that we're not getting bills past a certain amount of time for that, for either legal services or for engineering review. Am I right about that?
Correct.
Okay, that I covered it?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a position on that one way or the other in regard to, we were
I'm
gonna
just not
discuss
sure what it is. I'll do whatever you want me to do. I'm just not
bill
sure what it is.
backs? So
Well, I know
when-
what they, I know what they
Right.
are.
So that it's not something that a year after something, a bill comes in and somebody is, and I don't know if it's,
Like, yeah, I think the issue is what happens is we send the bill. The applicant, often what happens if applicants are denied, they never come back and pay that final bill, right?
Wow.
And then, they tend to take a long time. The bills go out after the application is done. And then if they don't pay, it becomes an administrative issue for the ladies who have to follow up with the resident or the applicant. So, I mean, whatever you want me
But
to
I
do,
like to,
Manny.
if you can send me the bill, you and Jason, send me the bill a lot sooner. Throughout the review, and I see that the escrow go below, let's say 50% of what they're supposed to have on file, then I can request more money.
Well, that's I agree with
Then
that.
I would not release the money until all the bills are paid, but I need it on a timely basis, because
Okay,
I can't hold money for a year. And then try to,
no. Okay, yeah, sure, we'll talk about it. No, I agree. I agree with the escrow review. And maybe incorporating that partly into the planning board, like a standing item on the planning board agenda. And I've done that in some other places, places
Yeah.
usually that have larger projects and are more busy. But we can incorporate that right into the planning board agenda and tell applicants when they come in, listen, this is where you are right now. That'll go pretty far to get that.
Before the next meeting, they'll have to give me that balance so we can bring that escrow back up.
Okay, so we'll.
So we always have money on account.
Yep.
To be able to pay the bill. The bill
Yep.
comes in, pay it. At the end, whatever is left, we give it back.
I agree.
Okay. So you're good with that? Can you touch base with Jason and just advise, is the board good with?
Yeah.
with-
Yes.
Okay.
We're just saying a faster turnaround time on the bills from the professional services for applicants.
For
before the
contract
planning
work
board.
for planning board and zoning board of
Right,
appeals.
so don't
Right.
wait till it's over, do it on a rolling basis as
Well,
you're
they-
going and accruing.
Yeah, I mean, they come,
You know that.
generally monthly, but what happens is some of the final bills will come after the application's
I
already
believe that.
done.
Yeah, that was.
So that's always
something-
tricky to try to
Back in the late
catch
70s, it
those.
started.
But I could
But-
solve that way.
We'll talk about it. Yeah, it's just really to put an administrative process in place to capture that. That's all.
Okay, all right. The next item on here is FOIL policy, and the village clerk brought this to my attention. And I'm gonna read something real quick, in regards to, something that was published in September of this year, so, literally 2 months ago. Governor Kathy Hochul on Wednesday signed legislation into law which will require that public employees be notified if their disciplinary records are requested as part of a Freedom of Information law or FOIL request. A coalition of good government groups came out in opposition to the bill Tuesday and urged the governor not to sign it, citing concerns about adding to an already overloaded FOIL system, as well as fears that it could erode transparency by discouraging requests. The bill's sponsor, State Senator James Scoop, has told Spectrum News 1 that public employees have a right to know if someone has requested their disciplinary records. They are at times not even advised that their file has been requested, close quote, he said. Quote, it's their personnel record, and once advised, they can prepare themselves for that formal process a bit ahead of time if a complaint is lodged, close quote. Not everyone is on board. Just one day before the bill was sent to the governor's desk, a coalition of good government groups sent a memo of opposition to Hochul. You can read the rest of that. When Doris came in to talk to me about it, and I've not spoken to council about this, but when Doris came and spoke to me about it, I'm like, I support that. I think that what would happen is if Mrs. McGillicuddy comes in and she says, I would like the disciplinary records of employee John Doe,
A police officer.
or whoever, police officer. Police
normally
officers are treated a little differently
Yeah, they
because of
are.
the work, but a water employee or a DPW employee. The way it currently is, the employee is not notified that Mrs. McGillicuddy has submitted the FOIL request, receives the FOIL request of their personnel, their disciplinary records, anything like that. I don't understand why it would even be a thing that you would not notify the employee. Now, what the counter argument is that it has a chilling effect on two things. One is it's going to overload the system, which looking at it from the village perspective, I don't sense that at all. But number two, that would have a chilling effect that Mrs. McGillicuddy would not want her name known to said employee John Doe, and so she would not request the personnel file or not request a disciplinary file. So I see that, but we'll obviously follow whatever the law tells us to do. But I am inclined at first blush, and I did a little reading on it, to say that I support an employee knowing if their file has been requested through FOIL. I think that is entirely appropriate. Does the board see it any differently? And I know that you're just seeing this
I didn't
today.
even know you could request somebody's. I thought that was.
Disciplinary.
We
right?
Yeah.
don't really have an option. She's
Well, it's a
already
village
signed the
record, Dave. It's a
legislation.
village
Yes.
record. What's that?
It's
Well,
already
it's
been
not.
signed,
Yeah,
Well, it
yeah.
says in the article, right?
So we can disagree, but we still have to enforce it.
100%.
So
It's the law.
It's the
Yeah.
law. Right.
Now, I assume that the employee is not told who requested their,
Why not?
I don't know. I mean,
Well, I would
that
think that
seems
it-
like that would be the
I don't-
potential chilling
I
effect.
don't want to take it to the level of the adversarial court system we have, but you have a right to see your accuser, right, in court. I understand it's different than
but if
somebody
they're not-
foiling something, but if somebody is going to get personal information about you, you should have a right to know that, I think. And I agree with.
I can see
what
the notification. I just wonder, when it comes to that chilling effect that critics of the law cite, that to me would be
But
the
the
one area where it might be a
But
chilling
the problem
effect.
is
if-
when you submit a FOIL, that's public anyway. So the
Eventually,
employee can
right.
then
Yeah.
foil the
Your FOIL.
request.
But the employee would have to ask for the right for the right information.
Yeah.
Or unless they're just gonna come up and
So
say,
once a
I'm foiling
month-
all the
Once a
foils.
month, you put in a foil. to see
Right,
if
you
anybody
say,
foiled your record.
right, you say,
Yeah.
can you,
Once a month.
I'm just gonna.
well, anyway,
It's just
it's,
gonna
I'm gonna
overburden the
go out
system.
on a limb here, just crazy. Why don't I actually get the law and give it to everybody? Then we can figure out, because if it's the law, we don't need to adopt any policy.
No, I'm not
It's the
looking.
law.
It is
No,
the
that's
law.
what you told Doris, right?
Oh, wait,
I
here's the
only-
policy,
I haven't
though.
I only
Sorry.
saw this
Saw
afternoon.
it this afternoon,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the policy right here on the second page. You saw the policy?
This
Not
is
yet.
Woodbury, right?
Am I supposed to look at both sides of the paper?
No, it's the second page.
It's got, yeah, it's got
Oh.
Village of Woodbury is listed here as the name. Notification of requirement.
Well, we'll just see what the law
I think
is.
we
and I'll-
reused
I'll
another
give it to
village's.
everybody.
No, this is the example that she's using. It is the
Yeah.
Village of Woodbury.
I
It's the
see.
example that
Got it,
she's
right,
using.
okay.
Just to say, we haven't put this into.
So what's our
practice.
action here? Is to
There's
potentially,
no, there's no
make this our
action. This is
policy?
this is a FYSA
got it.
that this is what's coming. But I mean, like I said, regarding the pushback and everything, I mean, if she signed it into law, it's
It's already in the
law,
law, yeah.
you know? So there's no real action to take. Now, I'll have to check again with Doris because she wanted, I don't know if she just wanted the board to be informed of this or if she wanted us to, there's no action to take.
No.
We're not passing a resolution.
How about this?
Nobody-
I'll take a look at the law. I'll give it to everybody. I'll talk to Doris. I'll see what she needs, and then
Perfect,
if I, well, I'll
perfect.
just
Yeah,
take
then
care
we
of it.
Joe
I
can
mean,
tell her
And,
whether or not-
I see you
Yeah.
guys nod your head. I'm guessing that would be the feeling of membership as well, that, you know, I should have a right to see who foiled my
Is it
disciplinary
just
file.
disciplinary records or your entire?
Personnel file.
No, disciplinary
Good.
records, it says. At least that's what the article says, sorry.
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
disciplinary records. That would be in your personnel
I
file.
would just be concerned about sensitive information such as social security numbers.
You
or
probably
stuff that-
redact it.
Yeah, I'd like to know
Yeah,
what
just-
kind of.
For sure.
You
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
go through his
That's
office.
standard.
We do have a standing policy that when FOIL requests come in, particularly if they contain any sensitive personal
Exactly.
information, the clerk reviews it, sends it to our office, just as a double check to make sure your social security number is not out there and your personal home phone number is not out there and things like that. So that policy is already in effect. It's not a written policy, it's
Right.
informal, but that's what we do. So I'll get the text of the law distributed.
And you make sure you always hold it the maximum number of days.
No, we don't, Dave. We follow the law and give it out when it's ready.
No, the maximum number of days that legal for a legal foil.
Well,
It's
we
30
will-
days, isn't it?
No, you have to
No.
notify you have to notify the applicant or the person, the submitter, that you received it within 5 days, and then you have 30 days
Exactly.
to take
Right.
action
And
on
don't-
it.
So on the 29th day in the afternoon, you respond.
Got it.
So it does,
Why is that, Dave?
That's the way it's
What do
done.
you have to hide?
That's the way it's done.
I think what he's saying, the ones that are reasonable requests, when somebody comes in
Then you
and
send
says,
them
I
half.
want the entire copy of War and Peace in
Exactly.
foil, you can push back and say, that's not reasonable. We usually have counsel take a look at it. You've got to be more specific. Tell us which chapter you're talking about or
I'm
whatever.
consuming.
I just
It
went
is.
Just so
through-
everyone
I
understands,
just went through
Dave
that.
is not our foil.
That's not one of them. I know
All
how the
right.
game is played.
All right.
it
So,
does, I do have a question. So
Yeah.
it does say that the employee gets notified.
Well, we don't know what it says.
Yeah, so I mean, I'd be.
no, that's
interested-
what the bill signed into law
Right,
states.
we don't have
Well,
to-
that's what
Even
the,
this
Right.
policy
That's
in
what the
Woodbury does not say that you
article-
tell them the
So-
name or something.
but
It
it
says
also
the
has-
employee is notified
you
and they are provided with the record. The employee is also provided with the record that was
But it
That-
doesn't
That
say-
was gonna be my
Yeah,
question. Do you
right.
get a
So
copy
this is
of
what we gave to the
Right,
person who
exactly.
came and asked for
Right.
it from a FOIL.
Exactly, because I think
Yeah,
there's sometimes.
that's what this policy says.
It used to be
Yeah.
years ago that the employees could ask to review their records and then some
Once
stuff
a
could
year.
be purged out of it.
Right.
that would be usually in the collective bargaining agreement.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Certain things only stay in a file. for
And-
So long.
and
You know,
if-
those are
And
things
if
that you
said
wanna clean up.
employee's file is evaluated and there is nothing there in disciplinary in nature, the full request is handled with a response that says there is nothing regarding disciplinary action taken against this employee. We consider this full to be closed. Okay, you're gonna research the law and let the village know if there's anything that we need to do, because I think what Doris is looking to do is what Woodbury did, which is essentially have a policy written pursuant to what the law requires for the village that we can hand to our employees. Okay, all right, good, moving on. All right, pro-housing community program. All right, I know I had pushed for us to take a vote on this and to enact this. I'm gonna recommend to the board that we take a pause. Why so? Because I've spoken to members of the town council, including the town supervisor and the town deputy supervisor at different times in regard to the town's position on this, as well as a couple of neighboring communities. So long as we are meeting the levels of new housing that are required, which is a certain percentage of the number of your population size and the number of homes or apartments you have available, there's nothing that you have to fear. Doing this aspirational pledge, there's been some pushback, and I watched the town meeting to understand why. Because again, I understand it to be aspirational. I think that's Bill's interpretation. I think that was Jim's. I think that was also Counselor's take on it also. I know that there are some apprehensions from people with us doing this, and I don't sense a necessity in doing it right at this moment. The same state assembly and Senate and state house are occupied by one party. If they want to make this a requirement, it's going to happen, and we will be required to do it. We are not right now, but that could happen tomorrow, and they could say, you're going to do this. Again, I don't sense a problem with what they're asking for. Again, getting back to transparency, I sense it as simply being something where you are being transparent about what you have available right now, what you potentially have available in the future. We've had a number of apartments, I shouldn't say a number, but a small amount of apartments. We're a small village, of course. We have a subdivision under consideration soon to be by our planning board and our zoning board of appeals, which is a big one. For us, 17 units in a village of 3,000 people is a big chunk. But I'm going to table this unless the board in a majority says we don't want to table it and we want to vote on it now. Not because I wouldn't vote yes for this, but because I don't think there is a necessity to do it at the moment. And not that I'm taking my lead from the town, but I talk to people across parties. I'm on the town council, and I understood why they were going to take a pause on it before they were going to make a decision. They had more problems with the language than I think we did. That they pulled apart some of the language. Their attorney is looking at it. Obviously, there's an attorney on the council as well, and their problem with the language. I didn't sense that problem, but I'd like to wait and see where the dust settles. And I just don't see, there's no deadline. Jimmy, this has to be done by December 1st, and we're not being threatened right now that if you don't do this, this is going to happen. But again, in the future, I don't want to preclude us from being from being eligible for grants because we said, nope, we stomped our feet.
Let's
So
see
we're
what
not
their
going to do it.
attorneys pick
Right,
out.
that's the carrot though, is the grants.
It's bigger than a carrot. It's a necessity in today's day and age.
Well, it's the
especially for
carrot
us.
to,
Yes.
yeah, to adopt the resolution,
Which
but,
could quickly become the stick if they decide that they want
well,
to
if
make it
they, yeah,
mandatory.
if they want to.
Yeah.
Well, they tried that and it went nowhere. So, but my question, I have two questions. One is, Manny, and not to put you on the spot, it's a quiz question, but I bet you know. How many units do we have in the village that would qualify? And if you
400
don't know, it's
change?
fine.
New units?
No,
No,
just
no.
total, like, how many dwellings are there?
It's 4 and
Apartments and
change.
houses?
About 3,500 perhaps, to no more than 4 for sure.
No, he's saying 400, you're saying
Say
4,000?
350. No.
I mean,
4,000
number of
people.
units total, including apartments and.
Like a house
So,
and an apartment, yeah.
of course, but apartments, you're gonna be looking at individual units.
Right, yeah, and I think that's what this
How about
contemplates.
dwellings? So how many dwellings, whether it's an
There's about
apartment,
1,100 water meters.
but that's
That's apartments, that's single family homes.
businesses too.
Yeah.
Do
but-
two family homes have two of them, or is it one per generally?
Some do, some don't.
Yeah. 1,100,
I mean, I
1,200,
can
something
get
like
you
that.
that information, I mean,
I'm just curious, because that would set the threshold where we would
Yeah.
qualify under the 1% per year thing. So like if we do this subdivision and it's 17 units, I can't do math.
That
Somebody help
takes
me
care
out.
of us for a few years.
Just put how many apartments down the street.
4, I think he had
1% would be
4 or
10,000.
6 or something.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
1,000 units is at 1%.
So you'd be good for a couple of years.
See? Math.
right, but
Almost 2 years.
But I seem to think
Be
that
good.
when I talk to the state
But I
about
think you'd be
this,
good anyway.
and somebody in Governor Zokel's office, who's the representative down here, and I can't remember his name, and the threat was coming down. That was before this happened, before the carrot, when the threat was coming down, and it was going to be voted on up there. He says, Jimmy, let's just do the math, and he looked it up, and I want to say that it was 400 was the number that he was using, and saying 1% of that is 4. He said, can you do 4? Can you build 4? That the goal is to build 4 a year at 1%. So that was the number he was using. Now,
Yeah.
maybe he was just talking about houses. Maybe he was considering an apartment complex to be one
One
dwelling or
unit.
one
Yeah.
unit instead of all the different ones there. But okay, anyway,
All right, let's see what the
so,
town comes back
you
with.
I'd
see
be
what the
curious to hear
town-
what GABA has to say.
Yep, I know
to me, it's
GABA's-
not,
I know that they're
Steve,
looking,
I mean to say, not
Yes.
GABA. Mr. GABA is what I mean to say.
counselor, but yes, I would be interested to see it. And I thought that they had passed it and they essentially tabled it and they were going to continue to review it. And I would say this to the board members too, continue to review it as I will follow it. And if there's something that jumps out or changes or necessitates us doing it sooner, it's not going to go away. We'll address it then.
I think when we want to apply for another grant, we'll wish we had done it. So I think we
Yeah,
should.
but I also think they'd probably allow you to do it in advance of doing, unless they
Yes,
give you
as
a
part of
cutoff
your
date,
application.
part of your
Yep.
application, which, by the way, Bill, is a requirement for New York Forward now.
Right,
You have to be a member of this.
Right,
to
that's
do
what I'm
this,
saying.
Which
but
we
the-
just got.
Which we
So
did.
we're not
right,
gonna be
right.
getting
We're
it
not
this
thirsty for that one right
Right,
now.
we're not
and
thirsty
gonna
for that
get
one.
it. But there are other
All right, you
programs
made your
included.
point, trustee Paleota. All right,
And
um,
Mr. Mayor, just to go
yes, sir.
back to the tree preservation law,
how did
As
we
a
go from the
superintendent-
housing to trees?
Because you
because
cut
I
down
just
trees to
jumped
build a
all the way
house.
back,
It's okay, I just got a text.
Superintendent Halverson points out that we do have the October 25th version of the tree preservation law on the website.
Okay,
So it seems like that has already been done.
Is that the latest version?
October
it's-
25th was our meeting, right?
I
Or
Googled it.
was
this
before
year.
that?
Was
I
it?
keep
Should
forgetting.
be.
Okay,
Yeah,
We're
so-
at every meeting.
so-
Why is
so
it-
we
didn't even
should
get on
be
that
good
goddamn
to-
Yeah,
What
we-
am I
it's
doing
We'll
wrong?
just find out from Doris when
Should
she
be.
posted it, but apparently it's already there.
Then it's been there for a while. It's been there
I-
since you sent it.
Since
Because
we
I asked her
told-
to
we told
post
her
it.
to.
I think
Yes.
the last time you sent it was the 21st.
The public hearing, we
Yeah,
posted
because
it
you
with.
were
All
out.
right,
It
so
seems
then,
like
so then what do? We can just vote to,
Yeah.
we've already done everything. We got to close the
Still-
public hearing and then vote.
Right, all your options are open to you. If someone come from the public walks up and has
All
a
of mine.
great idea, well, then you
And you
hold it
want to
open.
table
Yeah.
it? I got
Or,
you.
or if there's really no further
SCC is
comment,
looking at it right now,
you can,
as
or
we speak.
wait for those comments.
Oh, they are?
Oh, they're
Yes.
meeting
Good.
tonight, right?
All your-
Good,
all
good,
your
good,
options,
good,
all
good,
your
good. I would like,
options.
and Dave just brought up a good point. The CCAC is meeting tonight. They're the architect of the original,
Correct.
the original legislation, I guess it would
Yes.
be. The original legislation that the town passed that we used for ours. So I'd like them to weigh in on, hey, this is good, or you just took the teeth out by doing this, or you should worry about this.
Right.
Okay. All right, next item. This can be brief, Jimmy. A quick status on the Cornwall Yacht Club lease agreement. Jim and I have been meeting with 2 representatives from the yacht club. It is proceeding. Otherwise, you would hear differently from us here, but it is proceeding, and I'll let Jim give you a quick dump on where we are.
Then we had our last meeting with Steve and Steve, the 2 reps from Cornwall Yacht Club. I have to make some additional changes. Unfortunately, I've been bogged down in doing other work, but that will happen. I will then pass it off to Joe, and I do have to call Doris and ask her a question tomorrow or on Thursday. But we're getting there. We're almost there. They've been very, very patient. They've been gentlemen about this. So the ball is in our court, meaning my court right now. So we'll get it done in the next.
I have been leaning heavily on the deputy mayor, whether it comes to the CSEA negotiations or whether it comes to this agreement with the Cornwall Yacht Club, as well as some new things for the New York Forward projects, which I'm going to brief you about in a minute. So, Jim, I thank you. I know I've been pulling you away from your regular job quite frequently, but thank you for that. Okay, that's that. All right, Dave, here we go. So Dave reached out to me, Superintendent Halverson, the other day and said, "Hey, I need to see you. Can you meet me on the mountain?" I said, "Yeah, can we do it tomorrow?" "No, I think you need to see this today." So I followed him up on the mountain to the intersection of Partridge, and Dave, 5 or 6 homes up on Partridge. 5 homes up on Partridge, just near the top of the mountain, past Maple, was it Maple Road?
Yep, right across from.
Not Maple
Mountain
Avenue,
Crest.
not Maple Street.
Crest.
Mountain Crest,
Right,
which is a
right.
private road.
Right, but it's the one that veers off south, almost parallel to 9W, and there's 5 homes up there. There's a beautiful, like the way that the Greeks and the Romans used to, figured out how to build an arch without any mortar by laying the stones in place, and they all support each other. Obviously, there's mortar there now, but there is a culvert where water runs off the mountain, which we get quite frequently now, and water overwhelms during these hyperlocalized storms, has overwhelmed our stormwater system. But it comes down that side of the southern side of Mountain Road, and the bridge there it has been hollowed out, for lack of a better term. The roadway is actually starting to, and we have a steel plate up there to protect it. And you'll see some orange cones when you drive past there because it's right there by the entrance. It is that bridge. If that bridge was to collapse, God forbid anybody got hurt, but if it was to collapse and we had that calamity, we would have to cut a road through a resident's home for the people to access Mountain Road from Partridge. Dave said it is an emergency.
I had the engineer there.
And Dave had the engineer there who concurred. So what does that mean with an emergency? Well, we're looking at it, and Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. So I saw it, I put my fingers in it, I looked at it and saw what the concern is. And
When I noticed the condition that it was in, I formulated a plan on my own on how I thought we should handle this. And I got the engineer, and he basically agreed with what I was talking about doing a process called slip lining, where the stone arch bridge stays in place. They get a piece of pipe. It's almost approximately the same size, and wedge it in.
Yep.
And then you're going to put forms on each side and pump concrete around it. And you're going to be able to leave the stone arch bridge in place.
Which Dave thinks is over a century old, which means we would want to protect it.
You don't have to take the bridge down. There's gas services, other utility services underground in
Water
that
line
area. Water. If we were to take the bridge out to replace it and put in a
Millions.
large box culvert, we would have to do something temporary to get people through, because there's a large swale on the uphill side, and on the downhill side, it's mountain. You're not going to get in. So to protect the residents, it's time to go forward and do this. So I had the engineer come up. He got a hold of the company that'll actually do the slip lining. They have the pipe available.
Wow.
Which is
Yeah,
a
lucky.
bonus. The pipe is available at this time.
Get to the bad news, Dave.
Just a piece of pipe is $22,000.
Divided by
with-
5 residents.
With
He's on fire tonight. He is on fire.
his estimate that I
I didn't
have,
mean that, Bill.
he got things together today.
I don't live there.
We discussed it. It is an emergency situation. He deemed an emergency situation so that we could avoid going out to competitive bid at this time, so we don't have to stall. We could actually get this done rapidly.
Good. With a local contractor.
He thinks working with the local contractors and stuff, we can reduce the cost and save money by not going to bid. We're looking at a cost somewhere between $80,000 to $100,000 to do this.
Don't ask
In
me
the
about
short
contingency
term.
funds. They're not there.
It's in your court.
Got to do it.
Yeah.
I saw it, so.
I mean,
Yeah, Dave actually stopped and saw it too.
it's okay right now, but we also have to consider
Another winter.
fire
Right,
apparatus.
that's the main thing.
Fuel oil trucks. I mean, people have gas service up there, but we plow it, salt it, sand it.
Right now, no
Nobody
trucks,
from-
right?
No,
And
there's
that's a
trucks,
fund
there's
balance.
trucks going in and out.
But we're not taking the garbage truck over.
That's
No, the garbage
reasonably-
truck does not go up there. The residents bring down to the end of
Yeah,
that road.
thank God.
Dave, for that amount of money, it's obviously something we're not gonna bond out for a job for
Right.
that amount. We'll use local contractor, get the best deal that we possibly can. Our guys would help with whatever needed to be
We'll
done
do
there.
whatever we can to soften the cost. But I mean, that's a rough,
And
it's
then,
probably gonna be in the 80 range with.
so let's figure
That's a good
100 to
price.
be worst case scenario. And I imagine the only way that we could pay for, remember last year, I
The
think we,
100, Jim, just so you know, because I didn't go into it further, there's a box that goes up towards, the first house, which is undermined. That cost would be fixing that as well, so that it doesn't further erode around the bridge later on.
yeah, there's literally a tree there that the roots are literally holding up a section of the roadway and the bridge. It's just the roots. The
Wow.
soil has come all down, and
Yeah.
everything. It looks like the Okefenokee
It's
swamp.
off the side, it's not holding the bridge, that's off the side, but
It's immediately adjacent to Mountain Road? Like,
Yes.
as you, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
it's not up,
Ben,
You've driven
no,
past
the
it a
bridge
million
itself. No,
times.
I've driven
Yeah.
over it, I know it,
Yeah.
but I just, yeah, I was just making sure.
All right, so,
And is
so,
that a relatively permanent fix, we think, 80
that
to
would be,
100,000?
that would be a
Yeah.
permanent
Like
fix, and the
permanent,
stone
as much as
arch
anything is.
would stay as
Yeah.
a decoration.
Right, right.
we're lucky
Really?
it hasn't gone farther.
Good for
Yeah.
another 100 years, Dave?
Good-
Is that
good
what you're
for-
saying?
Probably.
Good for another
Good
100 years.
till December 23rd.
yeah,
whenever the next-
and, you know, it's, if you look at, when you'll pay attention when you go past it now, but it's got the stone where the stones are stuck like a porcupine quills.
It's
Like
nice.
they're stuck.
It's nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
And for us to be able to do this, make it more engineering wise sound, and then to keep the aesthetics of the top portion of the bridge would be a win.
And not have to cut in a temporary road to
Yeah,
fix
no,
and
no.
repair.
Through somebody's
And that would
property.
be, you double, at least double the cost.
Oh, yeah.
At least.
So, I mean, I imagine that I will talk to the treasurer tomorrow, but I imagine that the only way to pay for this would be through fund balance, which we're blessed. I haven't had my sit down, the compilation with the auditor. That is for next week, but we have a comfortable level of fund balance. So I would imagine this would be
What it's
something we
for.
have to tap into for. You're right.
What's it
It
called
is.
again?
It's
Slip
wonderful.
what?
Slip
Slip
lining.
lining.
Slip lining.
So
Slip lining away.
All right, so-
I'm gonna work forward with the engineer
Yes.
and the slip lining company and stuff like that, and try to
He's
get
on
things
fire.
lined up
Yeah.
and get a better grasp of what the actual cost is gonna be, but we have to, so long as you guys nod your head and say, good, I'm gonna start moving this forward, because I don't want to delay this any longer. And with the weather the way it is, we might be able to get this done relatively quickly.
Is there anything running under there right
There
now?
is no
Nothing.
water
It
running
is so,
whatsoever right
it is,
now.
Yeah.
it is, there's no water.
Now is the time
Oh,
to
God,
act.
yes.
Okay, all right, so what we'll plan on doing is officially approving this via resolution at the meeting on the 18th. I will talk to the treasurer tomorrow. You and I will touch base too. Make sure that, you know, we can make that money available and do that, which I do not think is gonna be a problem. Okay, all right, moving on to the next thing. Okay, last week, Susan Lanfried from the Department of State, who's been our rep on New York Forward, came in. We held our first meeting with her on the project, if you can believe it. I got a call from the village of Montgomery today, and tonight is their final project meeting. I remember when we were in that position, and I think the village of Highland Falls had theirs earlier this week. But Susan Lanfried came in. She met with the supervisor, the deputy supervisor, myself, and the deputy mayor to talk about a path forward. So I would, any trustee that wants to come in and take a look, you know me, I'd have everything in notebooks, but how we proceed forward with projects. Now in the village, I hate to say it, but we're kind of lucky and blessed in this sense. We got the only private project, and that is under a separate oversight committee from Department of State. So we don't have to do anything about the black box theater. It's easy breezy. That takes that off my plate. The second thing is, since the village is part of the town is taking oversight of the Pollinator Connector Trail from Donny Memorial Park all the way to Shadane Circle. They're taking over oversight of bids, RFPs, oversight of that. They're taking over oversight of the branding, marketing, and wayfinding. So that's the $300,000 or $400,000 allotment we got to better put Cornwall and Hudson on the map. And they're also taking oversight of the small project fund. The small project fund is the $300,000 that we will hire an administrator for, somebody who pay 40, I think you're allowed to pay them 15% of it or whatever to administer it. And they will be the person in charge of determining. Mrs. McGillicuddy comes in, she has a facade for her shoe repair shop and she wants $15,000 to do such and such. All of those village, town applications go through that. So those three things, those three big things, the town is on oversight of that, handling RFPs, handling all the different rules required, minority and women-owned businesses. Everything has to be tracked through that prism, which means we want to do local, but you've also got to factor in, what was it, a percentage, like 5%, 10% or whatever, 15%, I forget what the numbers were, you have to at least have made that outreach to minority and women-owned businesses to give them an opportunity to bid on that.
Yes.
So, and obviously if there isn't a woman-owned business or minority-owned business in this particular discipline, whether it's artwork, or not suggesting it would be artwork, but if it's something like that, sculptures or this, that, and the other, you can then go in a different direction. But there are a ton of rules. You know, this is just the start of it that New York State requires us to go through. And they warned us, they said getting the money was going to be the easy part. The hard part is putting all this stuff into practice, making it happen. Okay. We have 4 years to complete all the projects, 2 years to get shovels in the soil. We settled on, Jim, was it January 1st? The town settled on January 1st and we settled on March 1st as our start date, because that's when our budgets go into effect. To start the clock. Yes. Okay. So you know me, every meeting, there's always action items. So the deputy mayor, who happened to be the man in the room that took this, he's drafting up the first order of business, and he's working with our council on it, is to establish an MOU between the village and the town for the town to have oversight of these three major projects: marketing, wayfinding, and branding, small projects fund, pollinator connector trail between the town and the village. So what do? Well, as an FBI agent, we always ask for a pony. We called her a pony, which was a template. Let me see an example of how you wrote that up, or how you applied for it, how you wrote it up as the applicant, or how you did this. They don't have any because they've never had a town and a village together win an award like this. So we're going to establish an MOU, very short one. Jim's already worked on it in collaboration with council.
He provided me with a draft already.
Perfect.
It's fair.
That's the first thing. That's the first thing. But essentially what it does is,
cheap.
while the village and the town are sharing in this, the projects have already been defined and have already been chosen and selected. But just to make sure how this is going to work, we're going to put together a committee, and those committees will include this committee to oversee these projects and to make recommendations. Maybe it's somebody from the CCAC, maybe it's somebody from the Cornwall Garden Club, maybe it's Deep, maybe it's somebody from here, equal amount of town and village residents. We're thinking about 6 people with the oversight of the supervisor and the mayor, which obviously represent the council and the board, to approve these things as we say, this is what we want to do and how we do it. Because remember, when we look through the mission statements for, all right, Jimmy, the village has 2 projects that you're overseeing. One is the Dock Hill Road Connector Trail, where I believe we got close to $700,000 from New York State, from the New York Ford Fund. We also got $300,000 from New York State on the RTP fund, Recreational Trails Program or something like that. That's got to be managed. And then we have the Donahue Farm property.
But the bids are already in, right?
No, we haven't done any bids or
No,
anything. We have to.
I thought you had to.
No,
I thought when
this
you
was our
started-
kickoff meeting.
I thought when you did the New York Forward, you had to show amounts.
Dave, we had to give our best
estimated
guess
cost.
estimates.
Oh, it's a guesstimate.
It's a guesstimate.
But
Now, we actually had our.
did you have
engineers-
help doing that?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't know what.
So they're
cost
going to
to
be
do something.
accurate. They're going to be close.
Well, they're going to, you always build in a little bit
Right.
over the top of
Right.
it. And you projected, I thought I might get this grant, to buttress it, I might get this grant. This grant fell out, I didn't get it, this one did. I now have to lower my project cost from 1.2 million to $800,000. Can I still do this project with $800,000? Yeah, you got to manage your expectations. You might have to trim this down, not be able to add the facade, not do this or whatever. We're good. I mean, we built in enough on all of them where with the current prevailing cost to do business and wages and all those other kind of things, we're good. But so the two ones that we'll be managing here from the village perspective, Donahue Farm property, Dock Hill Road Connector Trail. The other three big ones, like I said, the town is oversight. We'll obviously be working with them. Our action item was the MOU. Josh's and the town's action item was, and the MOU, Jimmy, is basically designated the town as lead agency and outlining the working relationship for those three things. And then the town has to, the first thing they had to do was put an RFP out for the management consultant over all the projects, which, actually for each one of the projects, as I recall, right?
Yes.
So I think I told Josh, I joked and said, I think we got the better end of the deal here because, they're taking on those other three projects. We get a piece of the pie. We'll certainly give input, but it's his folks.
But geographically, is it even or is it not even?
When you say geographically, first of all, there's no 4.5 million doesn't mean 2.25 to the village, 2.25 to the town. We got the only private project. And we did pretty damn good with what we asked for on those two projects. They got a project approved for Riverlight Park. And what was the other one that they had? They had another one that I can't remember.
We're sharing them. They only got the.
Was it the Shadane? No.
Something up
Riverlight Park and something else. Riverlight Park is like
isn't there more to the connector up there? Isn't there some?
No, the connector's gonna run from the circle all the way down to
No,
Donahue.
I think it's just the one.
Along
Riverlight?
Around the pond or something.
We share.
Isn't there something? Isn't there a walkway around the pond?
That's too. It's going to be like an interactive learning thing and running trail, and I mean, it's it's going to be nice. Wait till you see what Dock Hill Road's going to look like. It is going to be a hood ornament for us. People are going to go out of their way to be on it. I mean, just with the signage, everything's going to be done in the same style in the village and the town. Different colors for wayfinding. We'll do branding and marketing online. We'll also do it here. Tangible things like street signage. Pointing you to Donahue Farm. Hey, go up here. You can see the Armistead. Go down here to do this. It's going to be quite nice. So we're excited about it. But anyway, so that's where we stand on that. We just had our first meeting. Here we are, how far along in the process. But it is moving along. Okay, that is that. And lastly, before I turn it over to Lori Beth, who wants to talk about the village tree lighting, and we'll talk about Hometown Heroes banners and the snowflakes. Deputy Mayor Gold and a deputy supervisor, I'm sorry, Wayne Gold, who has been the architect of Riverfest since 1996. I think they've done it 24 years. The only 2 years they didn't do it were the COVID years, 2020 and 2021, came to me. And you remember this past year, the Independence Day Committee tried desperately to have a beer garden during the 4th of July, and it was shot down by the town council. And
the timing wasn't good.
Yeah, I get it. But by the same token, he had approached me and said, what would you think? We've always thought that it would be nice if we could do some type of, fundraiser, bring in local Orange County, Hudson Valley breweries like the Newburgh Brewery, Russian Duck in Warwick. I think it's in Warwick. Chester, damn it.
Angry
Boy,
Orchard.
you jumped out really quick on that one, huh? I've been there once. Chester. Angry Orchard. But make it so that you would have to have a roped off area, a lot of rules of the road. Obviously, we would coordinate this with the chief. But two things have to happen. One, they need to get a state liquor authority permit to do this. And number two, the village board needs to approve a resolution to waive the prohibition of alcoholic beverages on village property.
Wait, I'm sorry. Where did they want to do it? I missed that.
Down at Riverfest.
Yeah.
So
I was thinking July 4th.
No.
Gotcha.
What I was saying is they talked about it.
Yeah.
I know that was something that Phyllis Murphy was trying to trying to make that happen. First of all, the amount of money that you could charge the vendors to be there, because the vendors would obviously, they could do tastings of some of their wares. They could also sell 6-packs or whatever, as long as it's an Orange County brewery, they would select a 5, 6, 7, 8 or whatever. They would put it into a restricted area. And one of the biggest problems they have is a lot of people they come down to the bottom of Dock Hill Road. They make the left onto the northern end of the park where, you've got all those little stations and booths there. And that's mostly where the kids stuff is. And this is by design. The boat dock area would be kind of a line of demarcation. You've got the food area down on the other end. You've got where the concert is, and they have trouble keeping people there for concerts. They would put the beer garden, restrict access anywhere else. You'd have to show ID, get a wristband, only consume alcoholic beverages within that quote unquote beer garden. I think it's a wonderful idea. I said, I bring it to the village board. Nothing you need to do now. I asked them for a 1 to 2 page prospectus on how this would work, because one of the ladies, and I'm forgetting her name, she works in the beer distribution business, and she knows how this stuff works. She's the one that proposed it. She's going to write up, hey, this is what we would have to do this, if the village would agree to this. And I said I would bring it to the village board for consideration. All right. That's the beer garden. And lastly, I had one other thing before I gave it to you, Lord Beth. That might have been my last thing. That's that. Yep. Okay. The Hometown Heroes program, the village installed
They look good.
7 banners. We had a total of 15. We did an amicable sorting of them. I only asked that people that had connection to the village be here in the village. I think everyone but one of them is. We have Senator Larkin. We have, Charlie Moore. We have Dan Clarino. We have who? We don't have Petraeus. Petraeus is in the town.
Oh, okay.
Even though Petraeus
Yes,
technically is a
yeah.
village resident,
Yeah.
but we also got the Rotary Club chose
Avenue Way.
Captain Buca for us.
Tip house on the left.
We have Senator Larkin, which his is the only one that's down on Bayview, right across from his
From
house.
Lovis. about
So anyway, long
5
story
down,
short,
6
there's
down.
7 of those. They will normally go up. They will normally go up
Yes.
on Memorial Day and come down on November 12th, the day after Veterans Day. Obviously, this is the first year we're rolling them out, so they're going to be up a little bit longer. And then we have 15 poles for a total of 22. 15 poles that RPC Electric has put the drops on. Lloyd Beth has done an amazing job of doing all the coordination with Central Hudson, all the coordination with RPC, with Ray from RPC, which is not easy. There were 2
Oh,
poles
it's busy.
that were selected. There were 2 poles that were selected that because they were out into the roadway, we were concerned about having the electrical snowflakes, get shaved off on 218, which is part of Hudson Street, where trucks might knock them off. So we selected 2 others. So we're going to have to, Ray talked to me today, says, I'm not even going to pull those drops off. I'll just put 2 new drops on. Lori Beth and Dave Howerson went out the other day, selected 2 new poles. So 15 poles. I had a meeting here with the town. So it was Dave, me, Lori Beth, Josh, Tommy Gishwin from the town. And we decided this. Lori Beth provided input on what the Main Street Revitalization Committee was looking at. We are going to install the lights. They'll be put up by Ray's guys with help from our guys, but because they are up on the poles and on a ladder or in a cherry picker on the 27th of December. So that's a work day for everybody because I think that's a Friday. And then the plan is to throw November 27th.
That's a Wednesday, isn't it?
Yes.
It's a Wednesday.
Yes.
And then the
It's a
switch
work day.
gets thrown on Black Friday. So you get it? Because we're going to light up Black Friday because that's the Shop Small event uptown. And that's the tree lighting, which I'll turn over to you for. But you're going to say to me, well, how are you going to do that? How are you going to throw the switch? We're not. They have photometric sensors on them. So we will leave them unplugged. And then on the 29th, we'll plug them in during the day, which is Friday. And now granted, that's the day after Thanksgiving, which means all of our guys are gone. So instead of bringing them in on overtime, Ray's guys will do the plugging in. Our guys will help out with the install on the 27th on Wednesday, which is the work day. On Friday, the plug in. And then you can't do a coordinated lighting because the sun hits each of them differently. So
Yeah.
this one may pop on at 4:45, this one at 4:48, this one at 5:05. They'll all be in the same.
I thought the shop small thing was gonna be like on a Saturday or something like that.
No, it's on,
Wrong.
yeah.
Well, the
No, it is,
regular-
wait a
yeah,
minute, it is. It's on the
regular-
30th. It's on
regular
Saturday.
Small
Yeah.
business
It's on
Saturday
Saturday.
is.
So Black
Saturday.
Friday is the 29th,
Yeah.
which is Friday, and then Saturday is Shop Small Uptown, and
And
Lloyd
the
Beth
tree
is gonna
lighting.
tell us
Tree
about the tree
So the
lighting.
tree lighting
Okay.
and shop small, same,
Same day.
and the lights will come on the day before.
No move.
So they'll be on. Now, what our plan is,
I think that was him turning it over to you. I think that was
yeah, the plan is about
that was
about leaving
that
up
was your
the,
window.
yeah, you had it.
All right.
Leaving up,
Windows
I
closed.
know, cause he's heckling.
This guy.
I know, and so he's heckling
I
too.
know,
The two of them
I know.
are mutt and
Do you
Jeff.
want to know about the tree lighting?
Yes.
Let me tell you about the
Yes.
tree lighting.
Please do tell.
I think I will. There'll be a lot of events at our tree lighting, more than usual.
First of all, who's stringing the lights?
The,
RPC.
oh, this
Well, we
is a
talked
tricky
about it.
question.
What was our decision at the meeting?
Fire?
We're gonna have a fire?
We're gonna have a fire, we're gonna light a fire.
Well,
Is it
I have purchased all the lights
Mhm. Yes.
and I have made arrangements to have it done.
So the old ones are
Yeah.
coming
Okay.
down because they are not in good,
Taken care
in
of.
good
So
repair.
Dave's taking care.
They're going on poles?
No.
No, on the tree.
Oh, that way.
What is this, Festivus?
No, I thought you meant, I thought you meant the lights on the pole.
No, the tree. He's gonna, we're talking about putting the lights on there.
No, they're- Last
Don't
year,
ask
You're gonna
that.
last year was
strong.
good. This year, the tree has to be stripped of what,
Yes.
everything that
Yes.
is on
They're
there
gonna
has to
take it
come
down
off
Yeah, they don't.
and
like,
new ones
right?
put up.
and new lights put up.
You just promised me more lumens this year and you promised me more pop.
I purchased 1,000 feet of lights to string on that tree.
Is that enough? I'm just saying, I mean, I want
At
the,
least 2,000
I-
to be safe.
Wait.
I want the Clark Griswold.
Is this gonna violate our lighting law?
Oh.
This,
It
the
will
snowflakes,
not.
will.
Hey, just make sure you have the right meter.
Better.
It will not violate it. You are exempt from that law.
Yeah, Municipal property. So,
But no, I, when we had our meeting about doing the snowflakes and everything else, RPC is doing the town's Christmas tree.
Okay.
And I talked with Ray and I asked him if he would strip off the lights off of our tree, and he
All right.
graciously
Great.
offered to string the lights on the tree for us with our assistance.
Right.
Okay.
I will provide manpower to help with the removal and the installation. But he is going to supply his bucket truck, which will be a lot easier to work around that tree.
we don't have a bucket truck. We borrowed one from New Windsor last year to do
At
it.
moment's notice, when I found out the day before
Yeah.
that they couldn't
No,
finish
why
it.
not?
And then to turn on those lights, we're going to have Santa
Santa will be there.
taking pictures
Got a
with
better
Santa in our
platform.
beautiful
Do it.
chair. We're going to
Is that
have,
Elizabeth's chair? The one
Yes.
that's-
Yeah,
Okay.
big, right?
we're gonna have, cookies to decorate, snow machines, writing letters to Santa. Mike, would you like to talk about the switch?
Oh, Santa's gonna have a new switch to throw that night
Switch?
to light the tree.
Like
Mhm.
one of those, like one of those?
I'm not sure. It's under design right now.
Oh.
Mhm.
Is it, has Manny approved the electrical work?
It's Bluetooth.
Oh, all right.
Manny and Bob.
All right.
Don't be anymore.
All right, Bluetooth, all right.
He's got a meter.
All right, so that's, so again,
And we have the jazz pioneers
Oh,
who will be
yes.
playing your Christmas favorites.
You're stealing your thunder. Can you let
No,
him finish?
that was his thunder.
Okay, all right.
The
Sorry,
switch
Mike.
and the jazz.
Yeah.
Mike's
All right.
thunder.
okay,
Very
Great
good.
job.
all
We're
right.
gonna have
And free
hot
alcohol?
drink.
The auxiliary will be there.
Not on village property, Jim. Don't make us check
Yes,
what's
we'll
in
have
that paper
cookies
bag.
And coffee and hot chocolate.
Storm King Auxiliary will be there doing their thing.
Carol, anything to add? Okay.
Who's doing the coffee?
Oh, the coffee, 2 Alice's.
2 Alice's.
Yes,
doing
he's
the
gonna
coffee.
come down, he's
What's that?
gonna manage
Oh,
all.
we don't have five.
Yes.
Oh, no, we did one.
Okay, so everybody knows. So 27th, snowflakes go up. 29th, snowflakes get lit, Black Friday. 30th, shop small during the afternoon, uptown. And then down here, what time is our festivities beginning?
5,
5 o'clock with a tree lighting at what time?
about 6, approximately.
And it
6.
will be dark by
Quarter to
6.
Santa, I think, is going to arrive around 5:30.
Oh, you've talked to him.
I'm
She
actually-
has.
Oh, you have.
Oh, he sent a letter.
He's really the
Oh,
real
all
Santa.
right.
He sent
Okay,
a letter.
So,
They can work up an appetite uptown and then come on down. finish off the night at our
Exactly. It'll be fine.
restaurants.
perfect.
It'll be fine.
So the method of the madness in doing snowflakes, which is about as non-secular as you could possibly have, is that because they're not holiday related, we're
Leave
planning
them
on
up,
leaving
yeah.
them up
Which
from
a lot of towns.
December,
do. Winter.
January, February during our gloom
Yeah.
period. That's what we call it at West Point, January, February, the gloom period. And then we'll dismantle them and take them down maybe at the end of February. So everybody good with that?
One
Okay.
other thing that's related to Christmas this year, the annual Santa Con will take place on December
Oh,
14th, where the local
All
residents
4
get
of them?
together and they visit the local restaurants and bars.
Dressed
and
as Santa.
Dressed as Santa, yep. And all proceeds go to the Cornwall
Special
Hudson
events?
Special Events Committee.
Okay.
Perfect.
Is it a bar crawl or what is it?
It is.
Okay.
message Ben?
Let's
And
call it the
restaurant,
proper
bar
name.
All right.
and restaurant.
All right.
Moving right
Um,
along.
Yep, I think that is everything that I had, including the extras that were added late. So FYI, November 11th, next Monday, Veterans Day, we are closed. The American Legion Gym is doing their services at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock, yes.
11 o'clock at the Veterans Triangle at the town, like they do every year. November 17th, 2 p.m., suicide prevention and bereavement.
That's at the bandstand.
That is at the
Yeah.
bandstand. It is
Yeah.
being sponsored by Chef Mike DeDerek, who is the house chef for Storm King Lounge. So it's a personal thing for him and his family, the scourge of suicide. So it's going to be just an awareness thing. They're going to have a band that's going to play for a few hours in the village bandstand.
Very nice.
And then, and then
It's a fundraiser?
It is a
Yes, it's-
fundraiser.
I think it's $25 per person.
Yep.
Food and.
At Storm King
Yeah.
Lounge.
Wow.
Or is it Storm King Lounge and Pepitini's? Yeah, it's,
Oh, that's.
but yeah, try to, if you get a chance, trustees and superintendents, you try to stop down there. It would be a nice thing
What's
to
the
do.
date on that?
November 17th. Starts at 2 p.m. I think the band is gonna play from like 2 to 4. November 18th, 7 p.m., an ethics board meeting here in the village boardroom. And then, I'm sorry,
There twice.
yeah, why is it
It's on
there
there
twice?
twice. There's 2 meetings.
Somebody's gonna violate it on the 18th, so we're gonna do it on the 21st.
I tried to stay away.
About that. I
Second
will,
one's a hearing.
well,
Joe?
no, here's the mistake.
They didn't
November
call me.
18th is the village board meeting in the village boardroom,
Oh, yeah.
and November 21st is the ethics board meeting.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, all right, let me go around the table.
Which raises a good point, because at the meeting, we're gonna be introducing a local law
The
to modify
electronic.
the ethics code. So
Right.
we'll circulate that obviously to the ethics board as well. So you'd probably want to leave that public hearing open, get comments from the ethics board, and just.
Will you remind me of that in real time when it happens? Because you're gonna ask me to, you're gonna remind me to leave the public comment
Sure.
open for that very reason. Okay, all right, let me go around the table. We are gonna go back into executives, or actually attorney-client, as soon as this meeting is done. Jim, anything? Bill, anything?
Just EV charger contract. Did you sign the
I'm
proposals
pretty
on that?
sure I did that
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a
I
week
think-
ago,
yeah, yeah.
2 weeks ago,
Okay.
yes,
I
for
just-
Integra, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw it
We
just,
selected
there were a
it.
couple of
We
emails
signed it.
and,
Yeah, yep.
I just.
Yeah, I'll
wasn't- I
confirm with
wasn't
Darth,
aware.
but I'm
No,
pretty
no,
sure I
good.
signed it.
That was it.
Lord
Thank you.
Beth,
Yes.
No,
Okay.
anything,
No.
Dave, anything, any superintendents, any alibis?
Just one. Tomorrow, we're having our health department inspection of the water system. If anybody would like to join us.
Is that like a all around all the facilities kind of
Yeah.
thing? Tomorrow's Thursday? What
Yeah.
time? 9?
9:45, we're meeting.
Meeting at
at the DPW office.
And you'll go to the reservoirs, you'll go to each facility?
Each facility and he'll go over our different requirements that we have to meet each year.
Mike, is this annual?
Yep.
Okay, all right. I will probably not attend. You'll let me know if there's anything I need to know afterwards, but I'll be around, so let me, yeah. All right, nothing else? All right, then I'm gonna make a motion to close the work session. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, gotta kick everybody out.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, man.
I just have one question.
Yes, yes.